Chapter 564. Translator. Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio 3 Legends. Haha, great. I didn't expect another legend to appear this year. The Luo Sha region leader was grinning from ear to ear. Huang Tianyu also reached the legend level and successfully joined the Warlord Hall. Maybe Li Xiu can do it too. 5 spots. If one of them can join the Warlord Hall, that would be great. A group of people were discussing this matter. But at that moment... Huff huff! The water attribute chi of heaven and earth in the room suddenly increased. Oh my god, another legend! The Luo Sha region leader and the others gasped. They wouldn't have come if it wasn't for them. Now, 2 of them came at once. They were really lucky. If they gave these 2 to the Warlord Hall, they could exchange them for a large amount of cultivation resources. Yi Xian's face was gloomy. He was the only one left who hadn't broken through the epic level and reached the legend level. However, not long after Li Xiu and the woman increased their affinity to the fire attribute and water attribute to the legend level. Ding! The host's affinity to the earth attribute has increased. It is currently at the lower legend level. The earth attribute gathered again after the fire and water attributes. The room was filled with 3 types of chi of heaven and earth, almost squeezing the other 2 out of the room. The earth attribute chi of heaven and earth. How is this possible? It's too fake. The 3 of them reached the legend level almost at the same time. Is this a miracle? I remember that this should be the last day of this kid's life. The crowd was in an uproar. However, the Luo Sha region leader's face turned pale in an instant. He suddenly remembered the Jiang family disciple from 8 days ago. The first place was going to fight the third place. Under normal circumstances, it was a battle of life and death. However, the first place Li Xiu and the third place Yi Xian had both increased their affinity to the legend level. The people present, including the Luo Sha region leader, didn't have a legend level affinity. Yi Xian and the other 2 juniors were all legend level. If Yi Xian and Li Xiu were to fight, both of them would be injured. If Yi Xian wasn't careful, Yi Xian would die. Others might not know, but the Luo Sha region leader and the others knew Li Xiu's level. Li Xiu was able to defeat Yang when he was on the back of the Cloud Eagle. However, at that time he still had his strength. Li Xiu's Li's was to Li Xiu's to himself. To the Luo Sha region leader. To Li Xiu Yang. As for Yi Xian, his affinity wasn't even 50%. His aptitude was far from Li Xiu's. This is bad. I don't know who provoked the Jiang family. If it's this brat, then it's fine. If it's Li Xiu, the Luo Sha region too. Li too. Is Li. Li Xiu Yang Tian. Yang. To Li Xiu. To Li. To Xiu Yang to Tian. The Luo Sha region's domain master reacted instantly. This was because Murong Shui also received a 7-star evaluation, which was also given by him personally. If Li Xiu provoked Jiang Tianjin, then Li Xiu and Murong Shui would fight. That way both sides would suffer. That was to say, the one who provoked Jiang Tianjin wasn't Li Xiu. It was Yi Xian. Sigh. To provoke an empty god realm expert. What a pity. The Luo Sha region leader shook his head helplessly. However, 8 days ago, Jiang Tianjin only asked him to put Yi Xian and Li Xiu together. If Yi Xian was strong enough or admitted defeat, there was still a chance. The Luo Sha region leader wanted to accept Yi Xian and nurture Yi Xian for a few years before giving him to the Warlord Palace. Now, even if the Luo Sha region leader had 10 guts, he wouldn't dare to accept Yi Xian. Yi Xian had provoked an empty god realm expert. Moreover, he was from the Jiang family of the Weapon King Palace. Jiang Tianjin obviously wanted to torture Yi Xian and kill Yi Xian. How could the Luo Sha region leader protect him? Kid, I don't have the ability to help you. You can only count on yourself. The Luo Sha region leader thought to himself. He thought that Yi Xian must have provoked Jiang Tianjin by accident. However, due to Jiang Tianjin's identity, he didn't want to do it himself. Then, Li Xiu would do it for him. Yi Xian, Li Xiu, and Murong Shui's affinity had all increased to the legendary level. However, because they had just broken through, the Luo Sha region leader didn't disturb them. Soon, Yi Xian's time was up. He was asked to come out. I didn't expect the 5 elements pool to be so effective. It increased my affinity to the earth element from the epic level to the legendary level. Yi Xian was very satisfied. He was the third, so he only had 8 days. The second place had 9 days, and the first place had 10 days. He still had to wait for 2 days. When he came out of the palace, he saw that there were already close to 100 people outside. These people were all looking at Yi Xian with envy. However, they also received a corresponding reward. Kid, you will stay here for 2 days. After 2 days, we will draw lots for the battle. There are 5 slots. As long as you win one battle, you will be sent by the region leader to participate in the Warlord Palace's Palace Guard assessment, said the old man who had brought Yi Xian in. Draw lots for the battle? Yi Xian was stunned. There were only 5 slots. In other words, the top 10 of them would fight each other in pairs. Haha, that's right. As long as I don't meet Li Xiu and Murong Shui, I have almost 100% chance of winning. Yi Xian was overjoyed. There were a total of 10 people who had entered the 5 elements pool. Yi Xian felt that these people weren't very strong, but compared to him, they were still a lot weaker. Even if he didn't use the Bahuang's sword, he still had the strength to kill his opponents. It would be fine as long as he didn't meet the first or second place. However, he didn't know that the order of the battle had already been decided. Soon 2 days had passed. The first one to come out was Murong Shui, which meant that she was the second place. Then, the first place was undoubtedly Li Xiu. Although Li Xiu had advanced to the legendary level at the same time as Yi Xian and Murong Shui, he was the first place. He stayed 1 day longer than Murong Shui and 2 days longer than Yi Xian. Coupled with his own strength, this battle was a sure win. Murong Shui was the same. As long as she didn't meet Li Xiu, her 7-star evaluation was almost guaranteed. After Li Xiu came out, the region leader of Luosha region said loudly, "All right, the top 10 are here. Next, we will fight for the position of the palace guard of the Warlord Palace. We have already decided the order of the battle. Next, please listen carefully. The first and third place, the second and 7th place, the 4th and 6th place, the 5th and 10th place, the 8th and 9th place." Chapter 565. Translator. Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio Fair? When the Luosha region ruler's words fell into the ears of the 100 geniuses, their bodies trembled. They already knew that the affinity of the top 3 geniuses had reached the legendary level. Therefore, they thought that the Luosha region ruler would use some tricks to separate the 3 geniuses. Who would have thought that the Luosha region ruler would be so fair as to put the first and third geniuses together? Oh my god, the 2 legendary geniuses are fighting for a spot. The region ruler is indeed fair. This is bad. The third geniuses have good aptitude. If they fight against Li Xiu, they won't have any chance of winning. That's fine. That kid looks young. As long as they nurture him for 5 years, they can always come back next time. A group of people discussed. At the same time, Yi Xian was helpless. He thought that he had used up all his luck to meet Li Xiu. He was sure that he had never offended the Luosha region ruler. However, he was guessing in his heart. He guessed that the Luosha region's domain lord already knew of his strength, which was why he set him and Li Xiu together. This is bad. With so many people, I can't use the Bahuang sword. I might not be able to win if I only rely on other things. Yi Xian thought to himself. The reward for this battle was a spot to be a palace guard of the Warlord Palace. He had to enter the Warlord Palace because it was a clue left by his father. Only by entering the Warlord Palace could he get the next clue. Therefore he had to fight. He had to defeat Li Xiu. Alright, let's start from the 8th and 9th geniuses. The Luosha region ruler sighed helplessly and said. The crowd was a little disappointed because they thought that the first battle would be between Yi Xian and Li Xiu. However, it did not matter. There were only 5 battles and it would be over soon. You can admit defeat in this battle. The winner will get a spot to be a palace guard of the Warlord Palace. After hearing the Luosha region ruler's words, the 8th and 9th geniuses stepped forward. Please, please. The 2 geniuses were about the same age and their evaluations were 5.5 stars. Therefore, this battle might be worth watching. However, it was a pity that the person ranked 8th had a water attribute physique, while the person ranked 9th had a wood attribute physique. The water attribute was countered. Thus, The 9th-ranked disciple won and obtained the opportunity to participate in the Battle King Palace's examination. Next it was the 5th and 10th place. There was a great disparity in strength in this battle. The 5th-ranked person won and obtained a spot. The third battle was between the 4th and 6th place. There was no suspense. In 4th place was the stone puppet, who had hidden his strength during the evaluation. His true combat strength had reached 6.5 star, close to 7 star, while his opponent was only 5 star, so the stone puppet easily suppressed his opponent and won. These 3 matches were just average to everyone. But in the next round, everyone's eyes widened. Murong Shui, the daughter of the mayor of one of the main cities in Luosha region, was blessed by the heavens. She was only 22 years old, but her attribute conversion had reached 70%. After soaking in the 5 elements pool for 9 days, her water affinity had broken through to the legendary level. Her opponent was ranked 7th. Although he had also concealed his strength, he only had a rating of 5.5 stars. 22 years old and 70% attribute conversion? After hearing the discussions of the others, Yi Xian also came back to his senses. He had also reached 21 years old, 1 year younger than Murong Shui. But Murong Shui's attribute conversion had surpassed his by too much. But this was to be expected. Murong Shui's father was the mayor of Luosha region, and his attribute conversion had reached 90%. He was also a strong person. Murong Shui grew up with a golden spoon in her mouth. How bad could her aptitude be? At this time the 7th-ranked disciple walked out and said, "I've heard of Miss Murong's great name. Although I'm a little overconfident, but I still hope to receive one of Miss Murong's sword attacks." When these words came out, the surrounding people were all shocked. His attribute conversion had not even reached 60%, and he dared to say that he would receive one of Murong Shui's sword attacks? He was courting death. One had to know that the disparity in strength in this battle was too great. It was almost impossible for Murong Shui to lose, so this young man's best choice was to admit defeat. Okay. Murong Shui also walked out without hesitation. She gently pulled out her long sword and then slashed it out. This slash had an ordinary color, and it was just an attack of pure chi of no attribute. However, due to the suppression of her realm, her opponent did not even have time to react before his right arm was chopped off. Rip! A severed arm was thrown up into the air. The reason this young man risked his life to come out was actually to make a good impression on the beauty. He was really bold. "Thank you for your mercy, Miss Murong." The 7th-ranked disciple expressed his gratitude. Everyone thought in their hearts, "This person is so scheming." Murong Shui defeated the 7th-ranked disciple and obtained the 4th place for the Palace Guard assessment. Then, it was time for the 5th round. This round was the key. I heard that Li Xiu's attribute conversion has also exceeded 70%. Now, his attribute affinity has increased to the legendary level. Among the geniuses present, except for Murong Shui, I don't think anyone can fight with him. That guy's attribute affinity is also legendary. It's a pity that it's a few years too late. He doesn't have the strength to contend with Li Xiu. I think he'll admit defeat immediately. Yes, that's definitely the case. Such a genius will definitely be carefully nurtured by the zone leader. He'll participate in the 100 Territory Summit in 5 years. The surrounding people were whispering to each other. However, at this moment, Yi Xian slowly walked out of the crowd. What? This guy actually walked out? Could it be that he really wants to fight with Li Xiu? What kind of joke is this? Has this guy's attribute conversion reached 60%? He's really courting death. Everyone was shocked, including Li Xiu. This guy actually dares to come out. Isn't he afraid that I'll kill him with one strike? Li Xiu thought in his heart. He narrowed his eyes and did not move. He shouted, "You want to fight with me?" That's right. Yi Xian had already walked out. Humph. This is the first time I've seen someone who overestimates himself. Don't think that you're qualified to challenge me just because your attribute affinity has reached the legendary level. Li Xiu still did not move. He stood in place and shouted. How do you know that I'm overestimating myself if we haven't fought? Maybe you're the one who's overestimating yourself? Yi Xian took out a high-quality celestial weapon. Fine. I'll teach you a lesson. Li Xiu snorted and jumped out. He also understood that Yi Xian's aptitude must have caught the eye of the Luosha zone leader, so he did not dare to kill him. Yi Xian took a deep breath and said, "Come on." Chapter 566. The first profoundly Xiu's attribute conversion had already reached 70%. The martial arts he practiced were all top-notch. Moreover, his fire attribute qi countered Yi Xian's earth attribute. More importantly, he couldn't use the Bahuang sword in this battle. Therefore, Yi Xian was going to go all out. "Brat, I want you to see that not just any random cat or dog can challenge me." Li Xiu shouted loudly as he slashed at Yi Xian. His realm was the highest among all the geniuses. Murong Shui had only used one strike to deal with her opponent, so Li Xiu wanted to use one strike as well. This flaming sword qi was extremely sharp. It was aimed at Yi Xian's left hand. If Yi Xian was hit by this sword qi, his left hand would probably be incinerated in an instant. "I won't hide anymore." Demon God Transformation. Suddenly, the shadow of a demon god appeared behind Yi Xian and merged into his body. At this moment, his eyes were pitch black. This is Old Devil Wan's demon god transformation. Luosha region's domain leader, Tornado, and the others were all shocked. When Yi Xian left Blade Island that day, Tornado didn't follow him, so he didn't know that Yi Xian had obtained the Tranquility Seed. He also didn't know that Yi Xian had learned the demon god transformation. The demon god transformation was created thousands of years ago by a void god realm elite. That person was Old Devil Wan. This Old Devil Wan was a little selfish. He didn't pass down the demon god transformation, so it was passed down after his death. But who would have thought that Yi Xian had comprehended the demon god transformation on his own? Li Xiu was stunned for a moment. So he was hiding his strength. But can you block this move? Li Xiu thought to himself. Although Yi Xian had used the demon god transformation, the surrounding elites didn't think that he could block it. At most he could dodge. But Yi Xian didn't want to dodge. He had been hiding his strength in order to wait for this moment. Now that the time had come, what was the point of hiding it? Sword of the Earth splitting. Second level pulse of the Earth. A brownish-yellow sword qi slashed out and collided with the flaming sword qi. Although the Earth attribute was countered by Li Xiu's fire attribute, it was still an attribute qi. Its power was much stronger than normal qi. Moreover, the Sword of the Earth attribute had increased affinity, so Yi Xian could only use Earth attribute qi to counterattack. Bang! The flaming sword qi and the Earth splitter sword suddenly exploded, and the shockwave swept out, shaking some people to the point that they couldn't open their eyes. Yi Xian had blocked. What? The domain leader of the Luosha region was already prepared to watch Yi Xian be killed, but he didn't expect Yi Xian to actually be able to block it. One had to know that Yi Xian's attribute conversion was only at 48%, not even 50%. Li Xiu's conversion. There was a difference. Li. Coupled with the fact that he had an attribute advantage, the difference in attribute conversion might be close to 30%. Yi Xian was actually able to block a 30% difference in attribute conversion. Why was that? Battle Yi! Li Xiu cried out in shock. He couldn't understand. An attack that could kill someone with 60% attribute conversion was blocked by Yi Xian, who hadn't even reached 50% attribute conversion. This scene was out of everyone's expectations. Even the Luosha region's domain master and Tornado had misjudged him. Only Murong Shui frowned slightly, as if she had realized something. Is this kid more talented than Murong Shui? But the yuan qi he used was only about 50%. It can't be higher. The difference between 50% and 70% attribute conversion is huge. How could he block it? Li Xiu must have gone easy on him. Or is Li Xiu a paper tiger? When Li Xiu heard that, he immediately shouted, "What did you say?" The person who called him a paper tiger shrunk his neck and didn't dare to say more. Yi Xian had blocked Li Xiu's attack with the Sword of the Earth splitting sword, which contained the second-level pulse of the Earth. Moreover, it took him 3 moves to block Li Xiu's attack. This was the difference. "I don't believe you can block it again." Li Xiu shouted in his heart and slashed again. Yi Xian had been waiting for this for a long time. He slashed 3 more times. Bang! The 3 Sword of the Earth splitting sword collided with the flaming sword aura and exploded. This time, Luosha's domain master understood. Ultimacy, Earth-throbbing sword? Luosha's domain master couldn't help but exclaim. Not only that, the surrounding experts also saw it. Earth elemental spirits were as rare as wood elemental spirits. It was relatively rare compared to the other 3 elemental spirits. However, this didn't mean that they were ignorant. They could still recognize ultimacy. What? Ultimacy? The surrounding people trembled. They suspected that they had misheard. Ultimacy? Impossible. How did you comprehend ultimacy? Li Xiao couldn't believe it. He had seen his flaming sword aura being shaken twice. This was the earth-throbbing sword of the ultimacy of Earth. Everyone was stunned. Luosha's domain master was even more so. His attribute conversion had reached 100 points. He was only one step away from breaking through to the empty god realm. However, if he wanted to break through to the empty god realm, he would need to comprehend an ultimacy. He had been stuck for several years, but he still couldn't comprehend an ultimacy. Although the 5 elements pool could increase attribute affinity, the increase was different for everyone. Luosha's domain master had only reached the upper epic level. The 5 elements pool had no effect on him. Therefore, he had been stuck at the peak of the spirit realm and couldn't break through. However, today, he saw a super genius who had comprehended an ultimacy at the spirit realm. Unfortunately, this super genius had offended an empty god realm powerhouse. What a pity, what a pity! Luosha's domain master and the others thought. They suddenly remembered Jiang Tianjin from 10 days ago. If he only has this much strength, I have a chance of winning. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. In fact, he had another advantage, and that was the anti-flight formation. On the central island, other than the experts, Li Xiao couldn't fly. This way, his battle dragon's 10 steps could be used as a trump card. When necessary, he might be able to catch his opponent off guard. Thinking about this, Yi Xian continued to attack. The vigor realm and spirit realm mainly depended on one's physique. When one reached the essence realm, the increase in physique would not be as great. It was the same for the spirit realm. In terms of physique, Yi Xian's physique was about the same as Li Xiao's. However, his attack speed was faster than his opponent's. After all, he still had the Fist Emperor bloodline, which could increase his attack speed by 30%. Sword of the Earth Splitting. Sword of the Earth Splitting. Sword of the Earth Splitting. Yi Xian stepped on the battle dragon's stomp as he attacked. Chapter 567. Translator, Transin Editor. Transin Pulsating Guard, I'm going to kill you. Li Xiao felt humiliated. He roared and began to attack crazily. Now, he dared not underestimate Yi Xian. If he lost, he might as well kill himself. At this moment, Yi Xian saw Li Xiao attack. This was a good opportunity. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Earth's Pulsation 2 steps. Although the Battle Dragon Stomp was the lowest level of Earth attribute martial arts, it was extremely powerful after incorporating the Earth's Pulsation. Yi Xian had used it to shatter quite a few people's heads, as well as their leg bones. This time, it was a great opportunity. Wang. Li Xiao, who was attacking, suddenly felt a roar in his head and pain in his legs. His first reaction was to know that he had been hit. In the blink of an eye, his fire attribute true energy gushed out and protected his feet. But at this moment, Yi Xian's earth-splitting sword arrived. Pang! Li Xiao's reaction was quite fast. He casually slashed apart the earth-splitting sword. Otherwise, this sword would have been enough to take his life. My attributes are restrained. This is terrible. Yi Xian was helpless. He thought that if Li Xiao's true energy was of the metal attribute, he would have the upper hand now. Pang! 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 The roars fell into the ears of the surrounding people. They were so shocked that they prostrated themselves on the ground. A person with less than 50% attribute conversion could actually challenge someone with 70% attribute conversion using ultimacy. This ultimacy was so powerful. This is too scary. If this kid had the same attribute conversion as Li Xiao would have been killed instantly. The Luosha region governor thought to himself. At the same time, he was very envious because Yi Xian had comprehended ultimacy. This meant that as long as Yi Xian's attribute conversion reached 100, he would be able to break through to the virtual god realm without any shackles. 3 earth-splitting swords can only block 1 flaming sword aura from the opponent. But my move is very insidious. The opponent can't find the time to attack me and is in a passive position. Yi Xian thought as he attacked. He was able to suppress Li Xiu temporarily because he took the opportunity to attack while Li Xiu was in a daze. If he had taken out the Bahuang's sword, Li Xiu would have been a corpse. Unfortunately, he did not dare to take out the Bahuang's sword. After all, it was perfectly justified to kill and rob others of their treasures. If a virtual god weapon appeared, it was understandable that the Luo Sha region's domain master would kill everyone here. Earth-splitting sword. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Earth's 2 waves. Yi Xian's to say, Li Xiu be as Li. Li Xiu had to defend against the earth-splitting sword while also defending against the War Dragon Stomp. At this moment, he was already cursing Yi Xian in his heart. Yi, editors Fox's art_editors Lucas_Lily translation Li Xiu to die to kill Fan as guard as Li as. Originally, Yi Xian's attribute affinity had reached the legendary level, which made him very unhappy. Now that Yi Xian had comprehended the ultimacy, Li Xiu was enraged. Li Xiu enjoyed the discussions of the people around him. However, after Yi Xian appeared, he was kicked out of the group. All the discussions revolved around Yi Xian. This made him very unhappy. This kid is so strong. After this, the governor might make an exception and let him join us for the assessment. This is not a good thing for me, Li Xiu thought. He was very confident that he would join the Warlord Hall. Murong Shue's appearance was within his expectations. But now, there was another Yi Xian. This meant that if they joined the Warlord Hall successfully, the 3 of them would be valued by the Warlord Hall. How could it be the same to value 3 people and 1 person? Most importantly, if Yi Xian joined the Warlord Hall successfully, the Warlord Hall would definitely nurture Yi Xian first. When that time came, he and Murong Shui would be in an awkward situation. Therefore, Yi Xian had to die. Kill, I'm going to kill you. Li Xiu roared in his heart. His aura suddenly surged. What? Yi Xian was shocked. Li Xiu still had a trump card. Although the increase in strength of Li Xiu's martial arts couldn't compare to the Demon God chapter, the gap between Yi Xian and him wasn't too big. With this increase in strength, Yi Xian probably wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Die, kid. After Li Xiu's aura surged, he quickly charged at Yi Xian. Sword of the Earth splitting. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Pulse of the Earth. 2nd level. Yi Xian quickly made his move. At this moment, his face had sunk to the bottom. Li Xiu's strength had far surpassed his. If he persisted, there was a high possibility of an accident. Although he had the blood of the sacred tree of life in his body, Li Xiu's qi was of the fire attribute and had the effect of burning. If he was grazed, Yi Xian would be in danger. Admit defeat? Or take out the Bahuang sword and kill Li Xiu? Yi Xian hesitated in his heart. If he took out the Bahuang sword, he did have the ability to kill Li Xiu. However, he could not guarantee that the Luo Sha region's domain leader would not be jealous. Even if he had to kill everyone, he must obtain the Bahuang sword. He did not dare to take the risk. No, he could not take the risk. If he died, what would happen to Sky Water Island? What would happen to Song Suijing and the others? Admit defeat? Yi Xian's mind suddenly flashed. Sometimes, it was necessary to admit defeat. After all, where there was life there was hope. Although he would lose the quota this time, he heard that there were more than 1 quota in Warlord Palace. Yi Xian did not use an invitation card at the 100-leader summit, so this was not his only chance. Kid, go to hell. Li Xiu slashed at Yi Xian with all his strength. Yi Xian was ready to admit defeat, but when he stepped on the floor. Ding! Host has comprehended the pulsating guard. What? Yi Xian was stunned. Pulsating guard? He hurriedly glanced at his attribute panel and saw that there was an additional ultimacy. No, it was the pulsating earth ultimacy. There was an additional branch, the pulsating guard. He hurriedly sensed it. Immediately after, a special energy surged out of his body. Bang! 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 The 3 earth-shattering swords collided with the flaming sword qi. Even though it contained the pulsating earth ultimacy, it was unable to disperse the flaming sword qi. Yi Xian widened his eyes as he watched the flaming sword qi hit his body. No, it should have hit the special energy outside his body. Bang! The flaming sword qi shook twice in an instant and then dissipated. This? Yi Xian was stunned. The pulsating guard, as the name suggested, used the pulsating earth ultimacy for defense, The pulsating earth ultimacy was used for offense, while the pulsating guard was used for defense. Furthermore, the pulsating guard was the same as the pulsating earth ultimacy. After sorting out his thoughts, Yi Xian's eyes shot out 2 rays of light. If he had this pulsating guardian, then he would have the strength to fight Li Xiu. Chapter 568. Reversing the situation. Haha, Li Xiu, you're finished. Yi Xian suddenly laughed. Previously, his 3 earth-shattering swords were able to disperse Li Xiu's attack. Now that Li Xiu had used his trump card, he might need 4. However, Yi Xian could only throw out 3 earth-shattering swords. Now that he had comprehended the pulsating guard, the remaining flame sword chi could be blocked by the pulsating guard. Yi Xian was safe. This is the pulsating guard? The Luo Sha region's ruler recognized it. Previously, he was fortunate enough to see an empty god realm powerhouse. Furthermore, it was a rare earth attribute, so he recognized it. The pulsating earth wasn't the only profound earth attribute. There were several other kinds. However, the difficulty of comprehending the pulsating earth was ranked in the top 3. It was even more difficult to comprehend the pulsating guard branch of the pulsating earth. However, Yi Xian had actually comprehended it. Genius! This is a genius! The Luo Sha region's ruler was filled with admiration. He had broken through to the spirit realm several decades ago, but he hadn't comprehended a single profound. Therefore, he couldn't help but be excited. Unfortunately, he suddenly remembered Jiang Tianjin's words. Yi Xian might die here. Even if he wasn't killed by Li Xiu, he might die in the Warlord Palace's palace guard assessment. What a pity! At this moment, Yi Xian, who had comprehended the pulsating guard, began to attack Li Xiu crazily. What the hell is this? Li Xiu was also shocked. He didn't realize that Yi Xian had suddenly comprehended it and thought that it was Yi Xian's trump card. The situation was instantly reversed. Now it was a tie. What is that? I can't see it, but I can feel the fluctuations. The entire space seems to be distorted. I'm not sure either. However, there is a martial art called the flame protection that is similar to this. How can a trash martial art like the flame protection be compared to this? Don't you know what realm Li Xiu is at? Is this also a profound? I think so too. After all, none of us understand profound. I'm afraid that even the ruler hasn't seen it before. The group of people began to discuss in low voices again. At this time, there was a white figure above the crowd. It was Yi Xian's cousin, Jiang Tianjin. TSK. TSK. He has even comprehended Pulse Guard. This kid really can't be left alive. Jiang Tianjin held a folding fan in his hand. Although he had a smile on his face, his eyes were filled with killing intent. I even wanted to give his head to Auntie as a gift. Forget it, I suddenly want to see him grow up. Then, I want to see the expression on his father's face when he is ravaged countless times. Jiang Tianjin's eyes flashed, and then he disappeared. He already knew the outcome of this battle, so it didn't matter if he watched or not. On the ground. Li Xiu, weren't you very proud just now? Come and kill me. Yi Xian shouted. Stinking brat, don't be so arrogant. Li Xiu replied as he gritted his teeth. Ever since Yi Xian comprehended Pulse Guard, Li Xiu's threat to Yi Xian had greatly decreased. As long as Yi Xian didn't reveal any flaws, it would be very difficult for him to kill Yi Xian. However, Yi Xian's true qi was still at its peak, while his normal true qi and fire attribute true qi had already decreased by half. Impossible. Impossible. I was actually beaten by this brat to the point where I couldn't even fight back. This is impossible. Li Xiu shouted in his heart. Who was he? He was the top genius of the Luo Sha region. He was only 25 years old, but his attribute conversion had already reached 70%. If he was given another 20 years, he was confident that he could break through to the peak of the spirit stage. During this time, he would comprehend a fire attribute profound. Then, he would be able to break through to the Void God realm. Void God realm. How long had it been since the Luo Sha region had a Void God realm powerhouse? As long as he broke through, then the name Li Xiu would be known by everyone. Die! You must die! I, Li Xiu, will step on your corpse to enter the Warlord Hall. Li Xiu was about to go crazy. He no longer defended and began to madly attack Yi Xian. A good opportunity. Yi Xian's eyes lit up. Since his opponent wasn't defending, wouldn't that be exactly what he wanted? At the very most, he would exchange blood for blood. Swish! Swish! Suddenly, two sword beams flashed. Bang! Bang! Yi Xian and Li Xiu's shoulders were hit at the same time. Humph! You have the earth attribute. Even if you petrify me, my fire attribute True Qi can quickly dissolve your petrification. Li Xiu thought in his heart. However, he was wrong. Yi Xian's attack didn't only contain petrification. After all, it was the earth-splitting sword that contained the second layer of the earth pulse. After the petrification there were two vibrations. Crack! Li Xiu's shoulder instantly exploded, and a large hole appeared on his shoulder. Damn it! Li Xiu cursed angrily and focused his eyes. At this moment, Yi Xian was holding the long sword in his hand and cutting off his burning left shoulder diagonally. Only a part of it was connected to his left arm. However, in the next moment, Li Xiu was stunned. He saw that Yi Xian's left shoulder, which was constantly spurting blood, was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. In less than a second, his left shoulder grew back. How was this possible? Not only was Li Xiu shocked, everyone present was shocked, including the Luo region's territorial ruler. This kid, does he have the earth attribute or the wood attribute? No, even the wood attribute spirit wouldn't have such a powerful effect. Did he consume the holy seed of life beforehand? That must be it. He must have consumed the holy seed of life when we weren't paying attention and grew his left shoulder. The surrounding people were exclaiming in surprise. Even the Luo region's territorial ruler and the others looked at each other because they didn't see when Yi Xian consumed the holy seed of life. However, there were no rules in this battle. Everything was a part of one's strength. Even if one used poison or concealed weapons, it was fine. Therefore, it was okay to consume the holy elixir of recovery during a battle. Cunning kid, let's see how you recover this time. Li Xiu cursed in his heart and prepared to exchange blood with Yi Xian again. This was exactly what Yi Xian wanted. This time, let's see if you can still resolve it. Yi Xian's eyes flashed and he suddenly slashed out with the earth splitter that he had been accumulating power for a long time. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two sword rays swept past each other but didn't collide. These two attacks once again landed on each other's bodies. Yi Xian was still hit in the shoulder, but Li Xiu was hit in the chest. Bang! The earth splitter exploded in front of Li Xiu's chest and instantly split his chest open. The wound was so deep that his bones could be seen. Li Xiu couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. He felt bad because his cultivation level was about to drop. Rip! Yi Xian's pulsating guard was also broken by his flaming sword qi and then slashed on his shoulder. In an instant, the flames spread rapidly. Chapter 569. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios Die. Yi Xian ruthlessly drew his sword and once again cut off his shoulder. In less than a second, it grew back. Oh my god! He hid 2 life saint seeds in his mouth. 1 life saint seed is already so hard to get, but he got 3 in a day. What a joke with his strength. He could get 10 in a day. This kid, he wanted to fight to the death with Li Xiu from the beginning. He never thought of admitting defeat. Nonsense. He has comprehended ultimacy. If Warlord Palace knew, they would definitely focus on nurturing him. The surrounding geniuses could not help but exclaim. Li Xiu's face was gloomy. He did not know why, but his heart was beating wildly. He could no longer hear the voices of the people around him, only the sound of his own heartbeat. If he doesn't die, I won't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Fight! Li Xiu was already prepared to fight to the death. Yi Xian had comprehended ultimacy and was much more talented than him. If Yi Xian did not die now, he would be the one to die in the future. Kill! Li Xiu shouted and rushed toward Yi Xian. Good timing. Yi Xian was also prepared for close combat. He knew that Li Xiu was already at the end of his strength, but if they fought from a distance, the Luo region's domain master would probably save Li Xiu before he was killed. At that time, he would have wasted an interspatial ring. In an instant, the two figures approached each other and attacked wildly. Li Xiu's realm upgrade time was almost up, and he did not have much true qi left. If he could not kill Yi Xian this time, he would be dead for sure. Therefore, he had to be extremely focused and slay Yi Xian under his sword. Unfortunately, Yi Xian had the pulsating guard now, so his attacks could hardly threaten Yi Xian. However, at this moment, Yi Xian's pitch-black eyes suddenly turned white. The duration of the demon god transformation had actually passed at this time. Haha, kid, you're finished. Seeing that Yi Xian had returned to its original state, Li Xiu laughed in his heart. How could such a martial art be used twice in a row? But Yi Xian could be used continuously. This is my chance. Demon God Transformation. Another phantom of the demon god condensed behind him and entered Yi Xian's body. His aura skyrocketed again in an instant. What? Li Xiu was shocked. He had been careless when he saw Yi Xian's aura weaken. But to his surprise, Yi Xian actually used the demon god transformation again. Not good. The Luosha region's domain master reacted and prepared to attack. After all, Li Xiu was also a genius. However, just as he was about to make a move, a head was thrown into the air. It was Li Xiu's head. The Luosha region's domain master was stunned. He had wanted to intervene, but he was one step too slow. What a waste of a genius. Initially, he felt that it was a pity for Yi Xian, but now, he felt that it was a pity for Li Xiu. In the next moment, he thought of one thing. That mysterious Jiang family expert allowed the first and third place to fight. Now that the third place, Yi Xian, had killed the first place, Li Xiu, would that expert make a move? Or could it be that he was wrong from the start? Did the other party think that Yi Xian would win from the start? The Luosha region's domain master hurriedly glanced around, but did not see anyone in the air. Yi Xian wins. Tornado announced. Li Xiu's head fell off. Naturally, Yi Xian had won. This was an indisputable fact. At this moment, Yi Xian walked over and took Li Xiu's universe ring under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Ding! The host's Earth attribute conversion has increased to 50 points. The system notified. The people present were not weaklings. Even if Yi Xian had concealed his aura, they could still sense it. Damn, he broke through. This kid is really a monster. He's so scary. Where did he come from? Not only did his attribute affinity increase to the legendary level, but he also comprehended the ultimacy. In the end, he broke through after the battle. Is he the reincarnation of an elite? Looks like our Luosha region is going to be famous. The people around them were so shocked that they could not calm down. As for Yi Xian, he couldn't help but smile. He finally won. Not only did his attribute affinity increase to the legendary level, but his attribute conversion had also reached 50%. If it doubled, he could break through to the virtual god realm. The virtual god realm. Aha! At this moment, the Luosha region's domain master suddenly said, "All right, the fifth slot is out. This is the Warlord Hall's Palace Guard Assessment Certificate. Keep it well." After he finished speaking, he threw a quaint token with the word battle printed on it to Yi Xian and the other four. Then he continued, "The 100 Leaders Summit has ended. You can rest here and wait for me to return. You can also leave immediately. As for the 5 of you, I will personally lead you to the Warlord Hall." Yes. Everyone nodded in response. In the next moment, the 9 heavens cloud rock in the sky slowly descended. The 100 Leaders Summit had ended. Since the others were not in a hurry, they naturally did not need the 9 heavens cloud rock. The 9 heavens cloud rock was now given to Yi Xian and the other 4. Let's go! The Luosha region's domain master jumped onto the 9 heavens cloud rock. Yi Xian and the other 4 quickly followed. After they got on, the Luosha region's domain master said again, "The 5 of you are qualified to participate in the Warlord Hall's Palace Guard Assessment. I will send you there first. You can stay there for the time being." Originally, the 5 of them could have rested for a few days before going. However, the Luosha region's domain master wanted to claim credit, so he set off immediately. After all, there might be a virtual god realm elite watching them. If Yi Xian died, he would not have a chance. One should know that Yi Xian had comprehended the earth pulsation and earth protection. His attribute affinity had reached the legendary level. He would definitely be heavily nurtured by the Warlord Hall. He did not need the reward. However, if he introduced Yi Xian to the Warlord Hall, he might be able to receive guidance from an empty god realm elite. At that time, he might be able to comprehend an abstruse meaning and break through to the empty god realm. The 9 heavens cloud rock immediately left and flew towards the Warlord Hall. Yi Xian, Murong Shui, Shi Shao, Lin Feng, Wang En. The Luo Sha region's domain master glanced at the 5 of them and said, "The assessment of the Warlord Hall is different every time. I don't know the specifics. You have to be careful." "Yes." Yi Xian and the other 4 slightly nodded. "There is still a long way to the Warlord Hall. You don't have to be so nervous." When the Luo Sha region's domain master finished speaking, he looked at Yi Xian and asked, "Yi Xian, can you share your experience of comprehending an abstruse meaning with us?" Experience? Yi Xian was stupefied. He realized that Murong Shui and the other 4 were also looking at Yi Xian. Even though the 5 of them were geniuses, Yi Xian was too monstrous. Even if the 4 of them joined forces, they would not be able to defeat him. Chapter 570. Battle King Hall. That's right, Brother Yi. Please share your experience with me. I'm also of the Earth attribute. The stone puppet couldn't help but ask. He was of the Earth attribute, and so was Yi Xian. Yi Xian's experience would be most useful to him. Yi Xian paused for a moment then said, "Actually, I don't know how I comprehended it, but I can only summarize the throbbing pulse of the earth into one word: quake." Then he took out 2 books and threw them to the stone puppet, saying, "These are the 2 martial arts I comprehended from the throbbing pulse of the earth. Brother Sure, you can try learning them." Sword of the Earth Splitting. Battle Dragon Stomp. The stone puppet caught the 2 books, glanced at them and said, "Many thanks, Brother Yi." These were the martial arts Yi Xian had copied from the devouring system after spending some devouring crystals. He had indeed comprehended the profound from these 2 martial arts. Although these 2 martial arts were of the lowest level, they might be useful to the stone puppet. Then what's the pulsating guard? From what I know, the throbbing pulse of the earth is extremely difficult to comprehend, and the pulsating guard, a branch of the throbbing pulse of the earth, is even more difficult. The Luo Sha region's domain master couldn't help but ask. The throbbing pulse of the earth can be integrated into any martial arts to increase its power, while the pulsating guard is used for defense. This pulsating guard, I've only just comprehended it. Yi Xian casually replied. Levels could be increased by devouring, but he really didn't know how to comprehend profound. Just comprehended it? Everyone was shocked. It turned out that Yi Xian was really suppressed to the brink of despair, and then his potential was stimulated, and he suddenly comprehended the pulsating guard. Genius. He was really a super genius. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Sir Domain Master, may I ask how many types of profound earth are there? This kid only comprehended it recently, so I don't know much about it. I'm not very clear about the specifics. I've only heard of a few. The pulsating pulse of the earth is one of them, and the pulsating guard is a branch of the pulsating pulse of the earth. Besides that, the profound of earth includes strength and gravity. As for the rest, I don't know." The Luo Sha region's domain master paused for a moment before he continued. "If we were to talk about which of the 5 elements has the strongest ultimacy, I think it would be the earth element." Yi Xian frowned and thought for a moment. Besides the earth pulse, there was also force and gravity. These 2 powers Upanishads were easy to understand. The power Upanishad should be to increase the power, and the gravity should be to increase the gravity to slow down the opponent's speed. Yi Xian thought to himself. His speed was fast, so he was curious about the gravity Upanishad. If he could comprehend the gravity profound and reduce the opponent's speed, the opponent's strength would be greatly reduced. This was a divine skill. Most importantly, this was equivalent to a flight restriction formation, which could force the other party onto the ground. I wonder when I can comprehend the profound of gravity. After pondering for a moment, Yi Xian closed his eyes. He wasn't cultivating, but he didn't want to answer other people's questions. After all, he had only comprehended the profound of gravity by chance. When the others saw him like this, they didn't ask any more questions. Yi Xian had just comprehended the pulsating guard, so he needed to carefully comprehend it and strike while the iron was hot. The Luo Sha region's domain master didn't say anything, but he was constantly looking around to see if anyone was following them. However, his worries were unnecessary. Jiang Tianjin did want to kill Yi Xian, but he changed his mind and left. Therefore, the journey was smooth and unhindered. 3 days later, the 9 firmament's great cloud Pang arrived at the Battle King Hall. "We're finally here." The stone puppet, who had been cultivating the earth-splitting sword and battle dragon stomp for the past 3 days, stood up from the ground and looked at the huge, solemn palace in front of him. That's the Battle King Hall? Yi Xian opened his eyes and said slowly. This is the Battle King Hall, but it's just a branch hall. If you pass the test, you will be appointed as a guard in this branch hall. The Luo Sha region's domain master said. Just a branch hall? Yi Xian frowned. Don't worry, your aptitude is very good. As long as I report this matter, the branch hall will definitely send experts to escort you to the main hall. The Luo Sha region's domain master said. Yi Xian nodded slightly. The branch hall shouldn't be able to find anything, so he had to go to the main hall. At this time, the Luo Sha region's domain master suddenly said, However, I heard that a mysterious force has appeared recently, and they are constantly attacking the experts of the Battle King Hall. I want to warn you. Mysterious force? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes, and two names flashed through his mind. Weapon King Hall. Beast King Hall. The Battle King Hall and the other two King Halls were the overlords of this region. However, if there was anyone who dared to provoke them, it would be the experts sent by these two forces. Murong Shui and the others also thought so. However, the Luo Sha region's domain master suddenly said, Don't think too much about it. Although the Seat Royal Hall is split into three, they still cooperate with each other. This mysterious faction was not secretly formed by the other two Seat Royal Halls. If it's not the other two King Halls, then who is it? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. At this time, the Nine Heavens Cloud Rock had already landed in front of the huge palace. Who are you? A man in silver armor walked forward quickly. I am the Luo Sha region's domain master. This is my proof of identity. The Luo Sha region's domain master jumped off the Nine Heavens Cloud Rock and handed over a token. The man in silver armor checked it, then took out a portrait from his interspatial ring and compared it. Okay, identity confirmed. You came this time to send off the geniuses? The man in silver armor looked at Yi Xian and the others. Yes, it's the 5 of them. The Luo Sha region's domain master nodded and secretly handed over an interspatial ring. He then pointed at Yi Xian and said, Sir, his name is Yi Xian. He has already comprehended ultimacy. The man in silver armor took the interspatial ring and quickly put it away. However, when he heard the Luo Sha region's domain master's words, he was so shocked that he almost dropped the interspatial ring in his hand. What? Ultimacy? The man in silver armor was stunned and looked at Yi Xian. Those who could comprehend ultimacy in the spirit stage were all geniuses that were 1 in a million. Although it was said that one could only break through to the nihility stage after comprehending ultimacy, most people would only begin to comprehend ultimacy after their attribute conversion reached 100. However, Yi Xian had only completed half of his attribute conversion. Is what you said true? The man in silver armor looked at the Luo Sha region's domain master. It's absolutely true. Yi Xian has an earth attribute spirit. He has already comprehended the earth throbbing pulse and a branch of the earth throbbing pulse, Pulsatile Guard. The Luo Sha region's domain master said seriously. What? He has even comprehended the Pulsatile Guard. The man in silver armor exclaimed and said, Boy, attack me and let me see. Yi Xian was stunned and immediately understood that the man in silver armor wanted to test him. Chapter 571. Translator, Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio Deputy Palace Master. This man was a palace guard of Warlord Palace. His strength was on par with Tornado, at least 10 times stronger than Li Xiao. Yi Xian's earth-splitting sword was not enough to threaten him. Pang! Pang! 2 muffled sounds were heard. The earth-splitting sword was easily defeated by the silver-armored man. It is indeed the pulse of the earth, and it has evolved to the 2nd level. Genius! What a genius! The silver-armored man widened his eyes and threw out a flaming sword chi. This sword chi was very weak. It was only used for testing. Pang! Pang! The sword chi swept in front of Yi Xian and was dispersed by Yi Xian's pulsating guard. Good, this is great. Another genius who has comprehended ultimacy has come. Very good. The silver-armored man was very happy. However, his words revealed something else. Again. Before Yi Xian, there was someone else who had comprehended ultimacy? A sub-palace is in charge of several regions. Each region is very large and full of talents. It is not a big deal to have another genius who has comprehended ultimacy. Yi Xian thought to himself. The Luo Sha region's region master was full of smiles. He had been on tenterhooks for the past 3 days. After all, he was afraid that Jiang Tianjin would suddenly attack and kill Yi Xian. Now, he had finally delivered her to him. My lord, may I ask, how is Huang Tianyu who I sent here 5 years ago? The Luo Sha region's region master suddenly asked. Huang Tianyu. The silver-armored man recalled and said, not bad. He became a small captain and his attribute conversion has reached 90%. However, he has not comprehended ultimacy. Small captain? The Luo Sha region's region master paused. It seemed that this person was doing well. All right, I will bring these 5 people in. Luo Sha region's region master. You can leave first. The silver-armored man said. Yes, my lord. The Luo Sha region's region master nodded slightly. Although he was stronger than the silver-armored man, the silver-armored man was a palace guard of Warlord Palace. He could only obediently call him Lord. Domain lords were nothing in front of the Battle King Hall. After the 9 firmaments Cloud Peng took off, the Luo Sha domain ruler also returned to Luo Sha domain. Only after the 9 firmaments Cloud Peng disappeared did Yi Xian suddenly remember something. He had forgotten to ask the domain ruler to help inquire about Song Sui Jing and Adjudicator Song. Forget it. I'll come back after I settle down. Yi Xian shook his head helplessly. Although the palace guards had the word guard in their name, they were actually divided into 2 types. One type was responsible for guarding the palace, while the other type was allowed to go out and do missions. Of course, these 2 kinds of palace guards could apply to exchange positions. All right, come in with me. The man in silver glanced at Murong Shui, then walked up to Yi Xian and asked, Young man, what's your name? Yi Xian. Yi Xian replied. However, in the next instant, the silver-armored man began to crazily ask questions. He even said that he had a daughter and so on. Yi Xian was also speechless. He also knew that the silver-armored man was trying to get close to him, so he vaguely answered. Murong Shui and the other 3 were instantly left out. They didn't even ask for his name. However, this was understandable. After all, with so many domains, who wouldn't want to get close to a super genius like Yi Xian? Brother Yi, the 5 of you can stay here for now. I'll report to the higher-ups. The silver-armored man led Yi Xian and the other 4 to a small residence in the palace. This palace was very big, but there was everything inside. Along the way, Yi Xian even saw some sacred beasts. At this time, they were in a small palace, but this place didn't look like a palace corridor. There were mud, flowers, trees, and 5 mansions here. It was really a different world. This warlord palace is really amazing. The black dragon we saw just now wasn't a sacred beast, but a virtual god beast. After the silver-armored man left, Shi Shao couldn't help but say, Virtual god beast? Hearing this, everyone, including Yi Xian, was stunned. Wasn't this the name of a creature that had surpassed a sacred beast? A virtual god beast could easily kill spirit realm trash like them. Yi Xian also didn't expect that the black dragon they saw just now was a virtual god beast comparable to a virtual god realm powerhouse. Yi Xian, the experts of the Warlord Palace might be coming soon. Then, you will be sent to the main palace. Congratulations! Shi Shao walked over and cupped his fists. Thank you. Yi Xian also cupped his fists. Shi Shao was tall and sturdy, and he had a straightforward personality. He was worth making friends with. However, he would be leaving soon for the main palace of the Warlord Palace. If Shi Shao and the other 3 passed the test, they would become palace guards of this palace. After that, they could choose to go out and carry out missions, or guard the palace. Of course, the palace guards who went out to carry out missions had high risks, but the rewards were also high. Most of the time, the young ones would go out. The older ones would comprehend mysteries here. However, Yi Xian also wanted to participate in the palace guard test. Who knows, he might be able to increase his realm. His aptitude might be rare in the branch palace, but there might be many in the main palace. Moreover, the main palace was filled with virtual god realm powerhouses. The surroundings were probably very dangerous. His strength was too weak, so he might be slower if he went over. Soon after, the 5 of them were assigned to their respective residences. Not long after, the silver-armored man who had just left came back with a black-robed middle-aged man. The black-robed middle-aged man had a serious expression. He didn't look excited at all as he slowly walked in through the door. Vice Palace Master, it's him. The silver-armored man pointed at Yi Xian. Vice Palace Master? Yi Xian and the other four were stunned. There were many virtual god realm powerhouses in the Warlord Palace's branch palace. Those who could become the Vice Palace Master were naturally virtual god realm powerhouses. At this moment, the middle-aged man was able to suppress his aura. Otherwise, Yi Xian and the other four would be so shocked that they couldn't move. Oh, you're the one who comprehended the earth pulse and pulsating guard? The middle-aged man's gaze landed on Yi Xian. Yes, senior. Yi Xian nodded. Attack me. The middle-aged man didn't beat around the bush and said directly. Seeing that the other party was so swift and decisive, Yi Xian didn't dare to dawdle. He immediately took out a supreme-grade heaven weapon and used the earth-splitting sword on the middle-aged man. Pang! Pang! The earth-splitting sword shook twice and then disappeared. It's indeed the earth pulse level 2. The middle-aged man squinted his eyes. Just like the silver-armored man, he casually threw out a streak of pure qi. Yi Xian was shocked. After all, the black-robed middle-aged man in front of him was a virtual god realm powerhouse. However, he didn't move and directly used the pulsating guard. Pang! Pang! This streak of pure qi was very weak. After being shaken twice by the pulsating guard, it dissipated. Chapter 572. Void Divine Weapon. Yi Xian's heart trembled when he heard this. He had been guessing whether the next level of the throbbing pulse of earth was the 3rd or 4th level. Now he finally understood that it was the 4th level. Then its power was indeed much stronger than the 2nd level. Your aptitude is very good. Even better than Sun Xingyu's. It's just that your level is much lower. The middle-aged man said. However, rules are rules. Even if your aptitude is good, you still have to pass the Palace Guard assessment. Palace Guard assessment? Everyone present was stunned. Did a genius like Yi Xian need to take the assessment? Was this a joke? Vice Palace Master, this. The silver-armored man said in confusion. A sword's edge is sharpened. I'm sure you've experienced many life and death battles. Only under such circumstances can a true genius be born. The middle-aged man paused for a moment, then looked at Yi Xian and said, that Sun Xingyu has also comprehended the profound meaning. He also wants to participate in the Palace Guard examination. My Warlord Hall wants a true genius. Do you understand? His words were very provocative, and no one could refute him. True geniuses rose up in the midst of difficulties. Most importantly, this was exactly what Yi Xian wanted. Understood. Yi Xian nodded solemnly. Good. Then gather at the entrance in 3 days. The black-robed middle-aged man turned and left after he finished speaking. 3 days later, it would be the sub-palace's assessment. After the black-robed middle-aged man left, the silver-armored man sighed helplessly. Brother Yi, the Vice Palace Master is like this. He always says those words. Please don't be offended. Yi Xian did not agree. He also felt that a sword's edge was sharpened. He also felt that this saying was correct. As long as he participated in the assessment, he could continue to break through. Brother Chen, what is the content of the Palace Guard assessment this time? Yi Xian asked. The silver-armored man shook his head. I'm not sure. Only on the day of the assessment will the elders of the sub-palace come out and explain the content of the assessment. That Sun Xingyu, how strong is he? Yi Xian asked again. The stone puppets group of 4 also pricked up their ears, curious as to what attribute this genius called Sun Xingyu had and how high his realm was. This Sun Xingyu's attribute conversion has already reached 70%. His divine soul is of the metal attribute, and he has already comprehended the profound meaning of metal. Midas touch. The silver-armored man replied. Metal attribute. Turning stone into gold? Yi Xian was stunned. He knew too little about elemental mysteries, so he couldn't help but ask, what's the effect of turning stone into gold? It seems that Brother Ye's understanding of profound meanings is very limited. The silver-armored man chuckled. You should know the characteristics of the metal element. Its attack power is the strongest of the 5 elements. And this metal elemental mystery is to allow his attacks to have the effect of assimilation. Assimilation. Yi Xian frowned. He did not understand what that meant. The silver-armored man explained, won't your earth element Zhen Qi petrify your enemies after you injure them? This metal attribute's Midas touch is very similar to your petrification. You petrify, but it condenses into metal. It is extremely difficult to dissolve and will also hinder the flow of Zhan Qi. The longer the metal lasts, the harder it becomes. If it is not dissolved in time, a part of your body will be crippled. So that's how it is. Since I have earth element Zhen Qi, if I am hit, I should be able to dissolve it better than other elements, right? Yi Xian asked again. Yes, that's why you can restrain that Sun Xingyu. However, your realm is too low. If you face him, I'm afraid it will be difficult for you to win. The silver-armored man shook his head helplessly. Yi Xian was good at everything, but his realm was too low. Does this Midas touch profundity only have an effect after injuring someone? At this time, the stone puppet behind Yi Xian suddenly asked. Yi Xian's eyes lit up when he heard this. He had actually forgotten this point. Yes, it only has an effect when you injure someone. Pure Zhen Qi collision has no effect. The silver-armored man nodded. Yi Xian was still a little worried just now, but after hearing this, he was not worried at all. This Midas touch profundity was actually a strengthened version of petrification. As long as he was not injured, this profundity would not be much of a threat to him. Moreover, he had the bloodline of the sacred tree of life. What was there to be afraid of? Big Brother Qin, I have one last question. Is there any way to get an ethereal divine weapon in the Branch Palace? Yi Xian paused for a while and could not help but ask. Ethereal divine weapon? The silver-armored man did not know why Yi Xian asked this. He thought for a while and said, ethereal divine weapons are actually not that precious. The ethereal divine realm elders in the Branch Palace have one. Ethereal divine weapons are different from heavenly weapons. Only ethereal god realm experts can fully utilize its value. Moreover, every ethereal divine weapon can grow. It needs to be nurtured by the ethereal god realm expert's elemental Zhen Qi. The longer it is nurtured, the greater the amplification of the ethereal divine weapon. It needs to be nurtured? The five of them were shocked. This was the first time they had heard this, and their eyes lit up. Yi Xian frowned slightly because he had an ethereal divine weapon. However, he was not at the ethereal god realm, but the spirit realm. Therefore, he could not nurture an ethereal divine weapon. An ethereal divine weapon is very expensive for a spirit realm expert, but it is nothing for an ethereal god realm expert. Moreover, an ethereal divine weapon will recognize its owner. Brother Yi, if you are at the ethereal god realm and you spend 10 years nurturing an ethereal divine weapon, then this ethereal divine weapon will increase your earth elemental attack power. If this ethereal divine weapon is taken away by someone else, then this ethereal divine weapon will be the same as if it has never been nurtured. It will only be a normal ethereal divine weapon. This is the same as raising a child. It will recognize its owner. The silver-armored man continued. I see. Yi Xian squinted his eyes and said, if I obtain an ethereal divine weapon that has been nurtured by someone else, then I will have to nurture it with my Zhen Qi again. That's right. After an ethereal god realm expert obtains an ethereal divine weapon, they will have to nurture it themselves. After all, a divine weapon that they have nurtured themselves is more convenient for them. Of course, there are also good and bad ethereal divine weapons. At this point, the silver-armored man could not help but ask, Brother Yi, do you have an ethereal divine weapon as well? Being asked this question, Yi Xian's heart trembled. He quickly shook his head and said, how is that possible? I am only at the spirit realm. How can I have an ethereal divine weapon? I am just curious. That's right. Although everyone has an ethereal divine weapon, it is not something that anyone can forge. Most of the ethereal divine weapons in the Warlord Hall are bought from the Weapon Lord Hall. The silver-armored man smiled. Yi Xian let out a dry laugh and did not say anything. His Bahuang sword was the weapon of the Bahuang sword god. It was an ethereal divine weapon. However, he had no idea what grade of ethereal divine weapon this Bahuang sword was. Was it the lower grade, the middle grade, the upper grade, or the supreme grade? Chapter 573. Translator, Transin Editor, Transin Palace Guard Assessment. Brother Yi, you can rest here for 3 days. The assessment will begin in 3 days. I will take my leave. The man in silver armor left. Yi Xian and the other 4 returned to their own courtyards to rest. What they didn't know was that the man in silver armor didn't return to the entrance. Instead, He went to look for the middle-aged man in black. Vice Palace Master. In a small courtyard, the man in silver armor knelt down on one knee. The Vice Palace Master turned around and said, "You will lead them to the assessment in 3 days." "Yes." The man in silver armor nodded. After a pause, he asked, "When should I convert him?" "During the assessment. Test him first. As for the other 4, the little girl and the big guy are fine. You can do as you see fit," the Vice Palace Master said calmly. Then he took out 3 small red stones from his interspatial ring and said, "These are 3 half-demon hearts. If you don't succeed, kill them." "Yes, I will complete the mission." The silver-armored man nodded. A strange light flashed in his eyes as he put the 3 small stones into his universe ring and left. During these 3 days, Yi Xian stayed in his residence and practiced the Dragon War Stomp and the Earth-Shattering Sword. He wanted to see if he could raise the Earth Pulse to the 4th level. Unfortunately, the ultimacy wasn't a martial art. It wasn't that easy to raise the level. 3 days passed by quickly. On the morning of the 4th day, Yi Xian and the other 4 woke up and walked to the entrance of the palace hall. At this time, there were more than 100 people gathered at the entrance. There were 9 palace halls under Warlord Hall. Each palace hall was in charge of 12 regions. In total, there were 108 regions. Each region could have 5 domain lords. Some larger regions could have 7 or 8 domain lords. Therefore, there were more than 100 people in total. Luosha region was ranked 3rd among the 12 palace halls. At most, there were 6 domain lords. Yi Xian and the other 4 walked out and found an empty space to stand. They looked around. Those who had come to participate in the Warlord Hall's examination were all geniuses among geniuses. All of them had at least 50% attribute conversion. Yi Xian was the worst. However, he still had his power Upanishad. Among the dozens of people here, only Sun Xingyu could compare to him. He just didn't know who Sun Xingyu was. More and more people came out from the side hall, and soon, the number of people had exceeded 100. Not only that, but a group of palace guards also walked out from the side hall, including the silver-armored man who had received Yi Xian. "Hey, Brother Yi." The silver-armored man jogged towards Yi Xian. "Big Brother Chen." Yi Xian hurriedly greeted him. The silver-armored man smiled and said, "The assessment mission is out. Furthermore, I will be the one leading the 5 of you to the assessment." As he spoke, he took out a parchment scroll from his interspatial ring. Yi Xian did not think too much about it and looked over curiously. Exterminate the Earth's Core Spider Cave. Each person must exterminate 100 Earth's Core Spiders and bring back 100 Earth's Core Spider poison sacs. Time limit: 2 days. Sure Shao could not help but read out the mission. Immediately, the 5 people had the same question. Were these Earth's Core Spiders strong? The silver-armored man read their doubts and explained with a smile. A single Earth's Core Spider can fight against a cultivator whose attribute conversion has reached 50%. Attribute conversion of 50%. Yi Xian paused for a moment. His attribute conversion was exactly 50%. Murong Shui's was 70%. Shi Zhao's was 65%, and the other 2 were both at 55%. Therefore, these Earth's Core Spiders were not a threat. However, this assessment mission required 100 Earth's Core Spider poison sacs, which meant that they would need at least 100 Earth's Core Spider corpses. There is a Earth's Core Spider cave to the west of the side hall. Our mission is to go there. At the same time, this mission can only be done alone. During the assessment period, non-assessors need to wait outside while I go in to evaluate, the silver-armored man said. The 5 people nodded. This was easy to understand. Combat ability was 1 point, but overall quality was still important. Strength alone was not enough to pass the assessment. All right, let's go. The silver-armored man did not waste any time. He put away the parchment and led Yi Xian's group to the west. There were many dangers in the vicinity of the Warlord Hall's side hall, but the experts of the Warlord Hall did not take action to give others a chance. The more dangerous a place was, the more opportunities there were, and the greater the improvement. If they died in there, they could only blame themselves for being too weak. The silver-armored man led Yi Xian's group and rushed for an entire day before stopping in front of a mountain. That cave is the Earth's Core Spider Cave. Within 2 days, each of you has to kill 100 Earth's Core Spiders and bring out the corpses. The silver-armored man pointed at a pitch-black cave and said, "Understood." Yi Xian's group nodded. All right, the four of you wait here first. Yi Xian, you go ahead with the assessment. After the silver-armored man finished speaking, he quickly descended to the ground. This Earth's Core Spider Cave mission seemed to be only accepted by their team. The others had all gone to do other missions. Yi Xian did not mind and followed the silver-armored man. Yi Xian, after you go down, it will depend on your own abilities. Even if your life is in danger, I will not interfere. This is the rule. The silver-armored man said to Yi Xian. Understood. Yi Xian replied and directly rushed into the pitch-black cave. The silver-armored man followed behind him and opened up a distance of 1,000 meters. The cave was very dark, but after going down a certain distance, there was a sudden light. It turned out to be the light emitted by some heavenly treasures. Yi Xian quickly plucked these treasures and swallowed them. Although the Earth's Core Spider Cave was strong, it was not to the point where he needed to use the 8 Desolate Sword. After entering the cave, Yi Xian did not even use the Demon God transformation. He just held a supreme-grade celestial weapon and wandered around. When Yi Xian landed in the catacombs, he heard a slight sound. He felt it for a moment. Other than the silver-armored man behind him, there was also a huge creature lying on the stone wall. Yi Xian turned to look. Indeed, it was a spider. Don't think that I can't see you just because you're hiding in the dark. Go to hell. Yi Xian immediately slashed with the earth-splitting sword and instantly killed the Earth's Core Spider Cave. After that, he walked over and kept the Earth's Core Spider Cave's corpse. 2 layers of the Earth's throbbing pulse. You're indeed powerful. You've comprehended the ultimacy at such a young age. If the transformation is successful, you'll definitely become a great general of the monster tribe of the Great Wilderness. The silver-armored man behind Yi Xian had a gleam in his eyes. At that moment, Yi Xian had already kept the Earth's Core Spider Cave's corpse and continued to move forward. Chapter 574. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations Complete. The assessment mission was to kill 100 geocentric spiders in 2 days. This mission was considered easy for Yi Xian. After all, his sacred tree of life bloodline was 10 times or even 100 times faster than a wood attribute spirit. He did not need 2 days at all. Yi Xian went deeper into the catacombs and encountered many scattered geocentric spiders. These geocentric spiders were all easily killed by him. 7, 8, 9. Soon, the number of geocentric spiders in Yi Xian's devouring space had reached 10. It had only been 10 minutes since he entered the catacombs. If Lin Feng and Wang An had entered, they would have used up all their true qi and needed to recover. A red geocentric spider? A ball of fiery red color suddenly appeared in Yi Xian's line of sight. He turned around and saw a spider dragging a flame as it ran towards him. This flaming spider was much stronger than a normal geocentric spider. It could probably fight a martial artist with 60% attribute conversion. Unfortunately, Yi Xian was even able to kill Li Xiao, who'd achieved 70% of his attribute conversion. Demon God Transformation. Die. Yi Xian immediately used his trump card and killed the flaming spider in an instant. Then he walked over to the flaming spider and said, Big Brother Chen, how many can this spider count as? It can only count as 1, said the silver-armored man behind him. Since that was the case, Yi Xian put away the corpse of the flaming spider and devoured it. His strength increased by a lot. This kid, I didn't expect him to be so strong. I thought he would need more time to deal with the flaming spider, thought the silver-armored man. Of course, with his realm, he could easily kill the flaming spider. Yi Xian continued to go deeper into the catacombs. The strong fighters of Warlord Hall had explored this catacombs before. There was a geocentric spider king here. Its strength was comparable to an expert with 75% attribute conversion. However, this geocentric spider king lived at the bottom, tens of thousands of meters above ground. At this time, Yi Xian was already deep into the catacombs. He would start to encounter groups of geocentric spiders here. 13. Kill. Without another word, Yi Xian charged forward. By the time he reached the group of geocentric spiders, only 3 of the 13 geocentric spiders remained. He quickly slashed out 3 slashes, killing the 3 Earth Core spiders. Yes, it's over 30. Give me a few more hours and I'll be able to complete the mission. Yi Xian was very satisfied. However, this assessment task was 2 days for each person. He only spent a few hours to complete the task, which was too wasteful. Therefore, he was thinking that after completing the mission, he would stay in the Earth's core spider cave and increase his strength. 40, 50, 60, 70. Yi Xian's killing speed was very fast. In less than 2 hours, he had killed 70 geocentric spiders. There were only 30 left before the mission was completed. But at this moment, rumble! Suddenly, a loud noise rang out in the lair. Yi Xian frowned. Sensing the commotion, it seemed that a large group of spiders was approaching. The silver-armored man also took out a supreme-grade heaven artifact. Although he said that he could not attack, it was just a casual remark. The Vice Palace Master thought highly of Yi Xian. If he allowed Yi Xian to make any mistakes, he would definitely die a horrible death. "They're here." Yi Xian's eyes lit up. He turned his head and saw geocentric spiders rushing out from the end of a fork in the tunnel. Sword of Earth splitting. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Pulse of the Earth. Second layer. He began to attack wildly. These geocentric spiders were on par with him. Even if he did not use the Pulse of the Earth, he could block the entrance of the cave with the demon god transformation and not let the geocentric spiders rush out. He estimated that after this, he would meet the requirements of the assessment task. 96, 97, 98, 99. Yi Xian attacked as he counted. Soon, the number reached 100. As long as he collected these geocentric spiders, he would have completed the assessment. At that time, he would be able to join the Warlord Palace and become a palace guard that even the domain leader would have to show respect to. However, since these geocentric spiders were rushing out endlessly, he was not in a hurry. He killed everyone that came out. He stood there like this for a minute. 363. Holy shit, why are there so many geocentric spiders? Yi Xian was shocked. With so many geocentric spiders, if it were anyone else, such as Murong Shui, they would have turned pale with fright. 363 geocentric spiders was a large number. Although they were not strong individually, how could ordinary people have such terrifying recovery speed like Yi Xian? What is this kid's background? Why is his Zhen Qi endless? The silver-armored man was very surprised. At this time, an even larger figure appeared at the end of the tunnel. Not good. It's the geocentric Spider King. The silver-armored man's expression changed. The geocentric Spider King could fight a martial artist with 75% attribute conversion. Yi Xian's attribute conversion was only 50%. Could he win by relying on his profound? The silver-armored man could not estimate, but he did not make a move. Instead, he watched quietly. So it's boss. Good, I'll turn it into my experience. Yi Xian's eyes flashed. He had even killed Li Xiu with 70% attribute conversion. What was there to be afraid of against a mere sacred beast? One had to know that almost all humans could challenge sacred beasts above their level. Sword of the Earth splitting. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Pulse of the Earth, second layer. Before the geocentric Spider King appeared, the normal geocentric spiders were all dead. Then, the geocentric Spider King rushed out from the pile of corpses. A boss battle. But to the silver-armored man's surprise, Yi Xian did not start a fight with the geocentric Spider King. Instead, he passed by it and started to quickly collect the geocentric Spider King's corpses. This brat is still collecting things at such a crucial time. Is he planning to run away after collecting them? The silver-armored man thought to himself. He saw that Yi Xian was faster than the geocentric Spider King, so he was not worried. In a short while, Yi Xian collected all 300 geocentric Spider King's corpses. He kept 100 of them and then devoured the rest. Ding! Host's Earth attribute conversion has increased to 53 points. More than 300 sacred beast corpses and sacred beast souls caused Yi Xian's stats to increase by 3 levels. Awesome! Big guy, go to hell! Yi Xian roared and suddenly attacked. The geocentric Spider King's carapace was considered tough. This geocentric Spider King was relatively strong and difficult to deal with. Although the carapace was tough, Yi Xian's Pulse of the Earth loved things with strong defenses. In less than half a minute, the geocentric Spider King fell. Chapter 575. Half demon, so weak. Even Li Xiu could easily kill it. How boring. Yi Xian shook his head and kept the Earth Core Spider King's corpse before devouring it. Ding. Host's Earth attribute conversion has increased to 55 points. This Earth Core Spider King gave Yi Xian a large amount of experience and allowed him to break through twice. Then, he turned around and said to the astonished silver-armored man, "Big Brother Chen, I've completed my mission." The silver-armored man came back to his senses and smiled. "Not bad. You've greatly exceeded the mission requirements. I've also observed you along the way and the overall evaluation is pretty good. However, this evaluation is still half complete." "What else?" Yi Xian asked subconsciously. "This is the Palace Guard's assessment mission. There's a hidden assessment that I can only tell you now." The silver-armored man gripped the long sword in his hand and said, "This hidden assessment is to fight with me. I need to know your true combat strength." "Hidden assessment?" Yi Xian did not doubt him and said in shock, "But Big Brother Chen, you've already converted 80% of your attributes. That's enough to kill me." "That's right, but we still have to fight. Don't worry, I'll only defend and not attack." The silver-armored man nodded. "Oh, if that's the case, then I won't hold back." Yi Xian's eyes flashed. He had never fought with an expert who had converted 80% of his attributes. He wanted to see if he could threaten his opponent without using the Bahuang sword. "Come." The silver-armored man gripped his long sword and said, "Bang." Just as he finished speaking, Yi Xian's figure flashed and raised his foot to use the War Dragon's 10 steps, which contained the Earth Pulse. However, the silver-armored man had been following him for so long. How could he be hit by this move? The silver-armored man's feet had long left the ground, so the War Dragon's 10 steps were useless against him. This was also within Yi Xian's expectations. He began to slash rapidly with his right hand, and the Earth Splitter continuously attacked the silver-armored man. Some of these earth-shattering swords directly pierced through the air, while others drilled into the ground and swept past the silver-armored man. The silver-armored man stood in midair, brandishing his long sword and instantly destroying the swords in front of him. As for the earth-shattering swords, they were all destroyed by his left hand. Only then did Yi Xian realize that the silver-armored man's true qi was of the fire attribute, which perfectly countered his earth attribute. This is a hidden part of the assessment. If you get a high evaluation, you might get a reward. Yi Xian thought to himself as he attacked. However, what he didn't know was that the hidden test was actually made up by the silver-armored man on the spot. The silver-armored man had an ulterior motive. Boom, boom, boom. A series of muffled sounds rang out as Yi Xian's attacks were all defeated by the silver-armored man. If they were to continue fighting, the winner would definitely be Yi Xian. After all, he had an endless supply of elemental qi. Even if the silver-armored man had converted 80% of his elemental qi, it was impossible for him to not use it up. Of course, this was if the silver-armored man didn't attack him. "Yi Xian, why do you have so much true qi?" Finally, the silver-armored man couldn't help but ask. "Haha, Big Brother Chen, that's not very kind of you. This is my secret." Yi Xian wouldn't tell him that he had the bloodline of the sacred tree of life. "All right." The silver-armored man didn't think much of it. At this moment, he suddenly put away the long sword in his hand. Next, he faced the earth-shattering swords with his fists. Moreover, he used one punch to destroy the earth-shattering swords. Boom, boom, boom. What a fist technique! Yi Xian was shocked. "Yi Xian, more ferocious." The silver-armored man shouted. Yi Xian's eyes flashed as he attacked with all his might. His attribute conversion had already reached 55%. Even if Li Xiu was still alive, he wouldn't be able to withstand his attacks. However, in the silver-armored man's eyes, these attacks couldn't even withstand a single blow. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly realized something. He realized that the silver-armored man didn't seem to be using true qi. Instead, he used his bare hands to destroy the earth-shattering swords. How was this possible? One had to know that after the spirit realm, a martial artist's physique didn't increase by much after breaking through. However, the silver-armored man didn't even use true qi. He used only his fists to destroy the earth-shattering swords. This made him feel incredulous. He stopped and asked in shock, "Big Brother Chen, how is your physique so strong?" The silver-armored man smiled and said, This is also my secret. All right, the test is over. You passed. Passed. When this word fell into Yi Xian's ears, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Did this mean that he had joined the Warlord Palace? Thank you, Big Brother Chen. Yi Xian smiled and said, let's go out. Don't rush. The silver-armored man called out to Yi Xian and said, I still have some things to tell you. What? Yi Xian stopped in his tracks and quietly looked at the silver-armored man. He didn't know why, but he had a strange feeling in his heart. Just now you asked me why my physique is so strong. I can tell you this secret, but it's up to you if you want to know. The silver-armored man slowly said. Secret? Want to know? These two words caused Yi Xian to be at a loss. This was the silver-armored man's secret. If he wanted to tell him, he would tell him. What did he mean by it's up to you if you want to know? If Big Brother Chen is willing to share, then I am willing to listen. Yi Xian nodded. All right, then I'll tell you. After the silver-armored man said this, he suddenly asked, Yi Xian, have you heard of the Yao clan? Yao clan? Hearing this, Yi Xian was stunned. He had heard of the human clan and the sea clan, but he had never heard of the Yao clan. Thus, he subconsciously shook his head. In this world, there are actually many races, such as the human clan, the sea clan, and the demon clan. The Yao clan is also a race of this world. Since you have never heard of the Yao clan, then you should have never seen one. You can think of the Yao clan as a race of sacred beasts that can transform into human form. The silver-armored man explained. Hearing this, Yi Xian couldn't help but think of a few people, namely the Flood Dragon clan in the Deep Sea Palace. Yu Man, and the others all had the ability to transform due to their ancestors consuming a transformation grass. Then, were they the Sea clan or the Yao clan? However, this wasn't important. The important thing was, why did the silver-armored man tell him this? Could it be, Big Brother Chen Yu? Yi Xian's mind flashed as he asked in shock. Chapter 576. There was no effect. Not a human? A half-fiend? Yi Xian squinted his eyes. He started to doubt his own eyes. This silver-armored man clearly looked like a human. How could he be a half-fiend? Yi Xian, the reason why my physique is much stronger than normal people is because of this half-fiend heart. Now, let me ask you, do you want to be like me? The silver-armored man asked with squinted eyes. This was his goal today. Like you. Yi Xian paused and frowned. He subconsciously asked, what are the requirements to become a half-fiend? There are no requirements. As long as you consume this half-fiend heart, then half of your heart will become a half-fiend heart. At that time, you will also possess a physique like mine. When that time comes, you will be able to challenge people of a higher rank than you. You will become the #1 genius of the Warlord Palace. The silver-armored man said. The #1 genius of the Warlord Palace. What a joke. Although Yi Xian wasn't very smart, he wasn't stupid either. Jiang Tianjin wasn't much older than him, but he had already broken through to the Nihility God realm. Even if his physique was strengthened, he wouldn't be able to break through to the Nihility God realm so quickly. The silver-armored man's words were just to test him. Do the palace masters know that you're a half-fiend? Yi Xian squinted his eyes and asked. The silver-armored man was stunned. He then shook his head and said, they don't know. That's why I'm very careful. This is because humans and fiends are mortal enemies. If humans discover us, we will definitely be besieged. Mortal enemies? Yi Xian's heart trembled. If that was the case, why did the silver-armored man dare to tell him? Suddenly, he thought of many possibilities and immediately asked, then, Brother Chen, why do you want me to become a half-fiend? Because I admire you. You are the most talented person I have ever seen. This half-fiend heart was refined from the heart of a heavenly dragon that was at the peak of the spirit realm. Its amplification is much stronger than my half-fiend heart. If you swallow it, you'll have the ability to fight against me. When the time comes, I'll teach you a concealment martial art. Even a Nihility God realm master won't be able to discover us. The silver-armored man extended his hand and showed the red stone to Yi Xian. To be honest, Yi Xian was initially tempted. However, when the silver-armored man mentioned that humans and half-demons were mortal enemies, he made up his mind. What a joke! If he became a half-demon, how would he face his family and friends in the future? Therefore, it was impossible for him to agree. Big Brother Chen, if I don't agree, will you kill me? Yi Xian asked with narrowed eyes. Yes, because this is my secret. If you are still alive, you will definitely reveal my secret. Only the dead can keep a secret. The silver-armored man nodded. Now that he had said his piece, it was up to Yi Xian to decide. Yi Xian had already guessed his words. If Yi Xian refused, the silver-armored man would definitely explode and kill him. Furthermore, this was the Earth Core Spider's nest. Even if Yi Xian died, he would have plenty of excuses. Yi Xian pondered for a moment and said, "How many half-demons are there in the Warlord Hall's branch palace?" "Just me and my captain," the silver-armored man said. On the way to the Earth Core Spider's nest, Yi Xian had asked the silver-armored man about a lot of things. In the Warlord Hall's branch palace, the captain's attribute conversion had reached at least 90%, while the captain was at the peak of the spirit realm. There were only 2 half-demons in the Warlord Hall. If the captain that the silver-armored man spoke of could refine a spirit realm peak half-demon's heart, why didn't he give it to the silver-armored man first? Yi Xian's intuition told him that this was a lie. However, he wouldn't be so stupid to refuse. "Okay, Big Brother Chen. I agree." Yi Xian nodded. "Great. Yi Xian, this half-demon's heart that was refined from a spirit realm peak sky dragon's heart is yours." The silver-armored man grinned without any suspicion. This was because Yi Xian didn't need to play any tricks. After all, his strength was there. Even if Yi Xian consumed the half-demon's heart and became stronger, Yi Xian would already be a half-demon by then. They would be the same as him. Yi Xian received the half-demon's heart and put it into his mouth under the silver-armored man's gaze. However, he did not swallow it. Instead, he quietly put it into his devour space. He made a swallowing action and asked, "Big Brother Chen, when will this half-demon's heart take effect?" "Very soon. You might feel a heart-wrenching pain. You must endure it. The longer you endure, the stronger your half-demon's heart will become," the silver-armored man solemnly reminded. Yi Xian nodded slightly. However, he waited for a while, but there was no reaction. Of course, there was no reaction. After all, the half-demon's heart had been put into his devour space. "Yi Xian, how do you feel?" the silver-armored man asked curiously when he saw Yi Xian's calm expression. Logically speaking, the half-demon's heart should have begun to take effect. However, why didn't Yi Xian have any reaction? "Big Brother Chen, there's no effect," Yi Xian said pretentiously. "Impossible. Could it be that the half-demon's heart was not refined successfully? Wait for a while and see." The silver-armored man frowned. They waited for a while. Including the previous time, it had been a full 5 minutes. "Big Brother Chen, there's still no effect." Yi Xian shook his head. "That's strange. Could it be that there's a problem with the half-demon's heart that the Vice Palace Master gave?" The silver-armored man thought. He waited for a while, but there was still no reaction from Yi Xian. It was impossible for Yi Xian to be pretending. After all, he had experienced that kind of heart-wrenching pain. Yi Xian could not remain indifferent. Therefore, there must be a problem with the half-demon's heart. "Yi Xian, try eating this one." The silver-armored man took out another one. This one was originally prepared for Morong Shui. This half-demon's heart was also refined from the heavenly dragon's heart. However, this heavenly dragon isn't at the peak of the spirit stage. It's a bit lacking. The silver-armored man tossed the half-demon's heart to Yi Xian. Yi Xian caught it and put it into his mouth in front of the silver-armored man. This time, the silver-armored man stared at Yi Xian. He could feel that the spiritual energy of the half-demon's heart had disappeared. This meant that it had been swallowed by Yi Xian. However, the strange thing was that Yi Xian still did not have any reaction after eating the half-demon's heart. What the F***CK? What's going on? 2 half-demons' hearts have no effect? The silver-armored man roared in his heart. Chapter 577. Demonization. Brother Chen, did your half-demon's heart change? Yi Xian asked. Change? What kind of joke is this? I don't believe it. The silver-armored man descended from the sky and walked in front of Yi Xian. He handed over the last half-demon's heart and said, "This is the last one." To be honest, if this half-demon's heart still had no effect, he could only knock Yi Xian unconscious and report to the deputy palace master of the Warlord Palace. After all, Yi Xian already knew his secret and could not return to the Warlord Palace with him. Yi Xian took the last half-demon's heart and swallowed it. The silver-armored man was 1 meter away from Yi Xian. He could clearly feel that the half-demon's heart's aura was disappearing. Let's see how much of a breakthrough these 3 half-demon's hearts can give me. With a thought, Yi Xian directly devoured the 3 half-demon's hearts in the devour space. Of course, this was a normal devour, not a special devour. Ding! The host's Earth attribute conversion has increased to 60 points. The system prompted. Before Yi Xian consumed the half-demon's heart, it was 55 points, which meant that it was 55%. But now, it had suddenly increased to 60 points, which meant that it was 60%. Although these 3 half-demons' hearts were precious, they were only refined from the hearts of saint beasts at the peak of the spirit stage. Therefore, their value was not high. If it were 3 void god beasts' hearts, then Yi Xian would probably be able to increase it by 10 points. Yi Xian was already very satisfied with this. The silver-armored man standing in front of Yi Xian was startled. He felt that Yi Xian's aura had suddenly increased. He asked in surprise, "Yi Xian, how do you feel?" "However, I've broken through." Yi Xian's mouth slightly curled up. "Breakthrough?" The silver-armored man did not understand. The half-demon's heart would only greatly increase the physique. How could it help Yi Xian break through? However, in the next moment, he felt an extremely strong murderous intent and immediately retreated. "Yi Xian, you!" The silver-armored man looked at Yi Xian in fear. "Big Brother Chen, thank you for the 3 half-demon hearts." Yi Xian grinned. "What do you mean?" The silver-armored man narrowed his eyes. "Hee, Big Brother Chen, I've already refined your 3 half-demon hearts. However, my heart is still a human heart. I am still a human, not a half-fiend." Yi Xian replied with a smile. "This is impossible." The silver-armored man frowned. "I don't care if you believe me or not. In any case, I am a human. I used my special method to refine those 3 half-demon hearts." Yi Xian stretched his body because he knew that there would be a battle coming up. Actually, he could have launched a sneak attack and killed the silver-armored man earlier. However, he did not because he wanted to see how strong this half-demon's physique was. "So you're saying that you were fooling me?" The silver-armored man finally reacted. "That's right." Yi Xian nodded. In this world, if you did not trick others, others would trick you. If he was a weakling who could be easily crushed by the silver-armored man, would the silver-armored man let him go if he refused? Of course not. I never thought that I would be fooled by you. I admire you and want to make you stronger, but you don't cherish it. Fine, now let me send you on your way. The silver-armored man suddenly took out a supreme-grade celestial artifact. It's not certain who will send who off. Yi Xian's eyes flashed and he gripped the long sword in his hand tightly. A demon god's shadow condensed behind him. In the next moment, the demon god's shadow merged into his body. The silver-armored man's attribute conversion had reached 80% and he had a half-demon body. His strength had already surpassed the Tornado General under the command of the Luo Sha region's domain master. However, Yi Xian was no longer the same as before. His attribute conversion had broken through 60% and he had the 2 profound meanings of Earth Pulse and Pulsating Guard. Even if he did not use the 8 Desolate Sword, he was not afraid of his opponent. "Kill!" At this time, the 2 of them shouted in their hearts at the same time, and their figures quickly dodged. Sword of Earth splitting. Earth Pulse. Yi Xian attacked with all his might. The silver-armored man kept swinging his long sword and streaks of flaming sword chi swept towards Yi Xian. Like Li Xiu, who was killed by Yi Xian, he had fire attribute vital energy. Therefore, he was more effective against Yi Xian. In addition to his half-demon body, his strength was above Yi Xian's. However, Yi Xian was able to kill Li Xiu with an attribute conversion that surpassed 20%. Today, he was only slightly more than 20. He might be able to fight him. Boom! 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 The 2 of them had just started and were already using all their skills to kill each other. Yi Xian was at a disadvantage in terms of realm and attribute, but his speed was not slower than the silver-armored man. Therefore, the 2 of them were in a stalemate. This kid, his attribute conversion was only 50% before. How did he suddenly increase it to 60%? The silver-armored man was very surprised. He thought that Yi Xian must have an extremely strong aura concealment technique that could conceal his aura and strength. However, he did not know that Yi Xian had just broken through. Moreover, it was all thanks to his 3 half-demon hearts. Big Brother Chen, you're a little weak. Is this all you've got? Yi Xian mocked as he dodged. Kid, don't be so arrogant. The silver-armored man roared. He knew that he would either succeed or die trying this time. If he did not kill Yi Xian would definitely announce this matter. When that happened, things would be bad. Therefore, even if he had to risk his life, he had to kill Yi Xian. Unfortunately, his current realm was not enough. The two of them exchanged more than 30 rounds, but neither of them could do anything to the other. However, compared to the beginning, Yi Xian had the upper hand. The bloodline of the sacred tree of life. Endless elemental qi. This was an advantage. The half-demon heart is not bad, but I, Yi Xian, am not blindly chasing after power. Since humans and demons are mortal enemies, I will enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and kill you today. Yi Xian roared. Cut the crap. You're courting death. The silver-armored man also shouted. However, he felt an immense pressure. This pressure came from Yi Xian. Ever since Yi Xian entered the geocentric spider's lair, he had not stopped to rest. Before the geocentric spider king came out, Yi Xian had killed more than 300 geocentric spiders using earth elemental qi. He could not understand why Yi Xian's qi was so different from his realm. Yi Xian's elemental qi had probably surpassed his own. If this continued, he would be the one to lose when his elemental qi ran out. Demonification. At this moment, the silver-armored man suddenly roared at the sky. His entire appearance began to change. This is Chapter 578. Translator, Transin Editor, Transin Dai. Yi Xian watched as the silver-armored man's hands turned into claws, horns grew from his head, and a slender tail grew out. However, he had seen this kind of tail before, and it wasn't just once. Sky Dragon. This silver-armored man's half-demon heart was refined from the heart of a sky dragon, so after demonification, he looked a little like a sky dragon. Brat, I'm going to kill you. The silver-armored man transformed into a half-human, half-dragon form. After a loud shout, he threw away the long sword in his hand and pounced at Yi Xian. This time, Yi Xian didn't dare to hold back anymore. Bahuang sword. Yi Xian unhesitatingly took out the Bahuang sword, but it immediately shattered. Bahuang wind formation. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Numerous sharp blades flew towards the demonified silver-armored man. Yi Xian had already comprehended the throbbing pulse of the earth, so he could fuse it with any attack. This Bahuang wind formation could do the same. What? The silver-armored man was stunned. Seeing the 8 sharp blades flying towards him, he stretched out his claws and tried to grab them, but they were fiercely repelled. Ethereal divine weapon. This is an ethereal divine weapon. The silver-armored man immediately recognized it. He finally understood why Yi Xian had asked him about the ethereal divine weapon in detail. It turned out that Yi Xian really did have an ethereal divine weapon. This was going to be troublesome. Big Brother Chen, I'm sorry. I was very willing to befriend you, but who knew that you would be so greedy as to target me? So please die. Yi Xian's eyes widened. He controlled the 8 sharp blades and attacked with the sword of the earth shattering. At this moment, the silver-armored man's feet landed on the ground. After all, if one's body was strong, it would be faster to run on his feet. It was much faster than flying. This also gave Yi Xian a chance. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Throbbing pulse of the earth. 2 layers. Boom, boom, boom. Under the 3-pronged attack, the silver-armored man couldn't release his hands and was forced into a passive state. The silver-armored man's half-dragon face was already ashen as if he had eaten poison. He didn't expect that he would end up like this. Now, he couldn't hold on much longer. Yi Xian, I admit defeat. The silver-armored man finally said. Admit defeat? Admit defeat? Yi Xian almost laughed out loud. In a battle of life and death, there was still someone who would admit defeat. Editors Lucas. Big Brother Chen, let me send you to heaven. Yi Xian didn't Yi Xian. Bahuang wind formation. Sword of the earth shattering step. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Transin Xian Dragon Island Move Run Divine Xian Ice Steps, EMNN Transin Technique. Under the three-pronged attack, wounds began to appear on the silver-armored man's body. These wounds were all caused by the earth elemental true energy, which could obstruct the flow of his true energy. Although his true chi was of the fire attribute, he didn't have the time to dispel the stones on his body in the face of such a difficult joint attack. Finally, in the 105th round of the battle, bang! Yi Xian's Sword of the Earth suddenly swept past the silver-armored man's thigh and cut it off. The wound was instantly petrified and then exploded. Losing a leg, he couldn't fight anymore. He hurriedly begged for mercy. "Yi Xian, spare my life." When these words entered Yi Xian's ears, he was unable to convince him. "Die!" Yi Xian swept his sword and instantly cut off the silver-armored man's head. Die! Yi Xian only knew that his surname was Chen. He didn't even know his name. Although the silver-armored man had family, did Yi Xian not have family? Natural selection. The weak were always eliminated first. Since he dared to target Yi Xian, he should be prepared to be killed. After the silver-armored man died, he regained his original appearance. Yi Xian walked over and collected the man's interspatial ring along with the corpse. Ding! The host's Earth attribute conversion has increased. It is currently at 62 points. The silver-armored man was a god of the Warlord Hall's branch. He was very strong and very wealthy. However, Yi Xian's current level wasn't low, so it only increased Yi Xian's level by 2. Still, this was pretty good. After all, when he entered the underground spider's lair, his attribute conversion had only increased by 50%. I didn't expect him to be a half-demon. Although he's not a true demon, he's still a mortal enemy of humans. How dare he try to recruit me? What kind of joke is this? Yi Xian snorted inwardly. The silver-armored man was already dead. However, he was the examiner for this trial. Who would take over if he died? Looks like I have to find a reason to shove him in. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. This wasn't the main point. The main point was that there were definitely other half-demons in the Warlord Hall. There might even be demons in human form. However, most of the people in the Warlord Hall were humans. It was impossible for half-demons to infiltrate too many of them. Therefore, Yi Xian had to return to the Warlord Hall. Let's get out of here first. Yi Xian calmed down and cleaned up the scene. Then he rushed to the surface. Before long, he was back on the surface. Yi Xian, why did you come out? Shi Xiao, who was hovering above the underground spider's lair, couldn't help but ask when he saw Yi Xian fly out. I was in the middle of killing when Big Brother Chen suddenly asked me to come out. I don't know why, Yi Xian replied casually. Shi Xiao immediately understood. He probably saw some treasure on the way, so he stopped the trial. Murong Shui and the others nodded. They all understood. Therefore, Yi Xian stayed with them for a whole day. That's strange. Didn't they say that the underground spiders weren't strong? Big Brother Chen should have come out in a day. Shi Xiao frowned. This wasn't the first time he asked this question. There's a spider king in the underground spider's lair. Could it be that Big Brother Chen went to kill it to be safe for us? It's also possible that he was surrounded by a large number of spiders. Bah, Big Brother Chen's attribute conversion has reached 80%. How could there be an accident? Shi Xiao and the other two people were still discussing. Murong Shui stood quietly to the side, not saying anything. Only Yi Xian knew the reason. The silver-armored man was killed by him, so he couldn't come out. The corpse was still in his devouring space. If he really came out, Yi Xian would probably be scared to death. At the same time, the silver-armored man had prepared 3 half-demon hearts, so Yi Xian guessed that Murong Shui and Shi Xiao were also on his list. By killing the silver-armored man, Yi Xian indirectly saved Murong Shui and Shi Xiao. Wait, when it's about time, the 5 of us will go back. Then, we'll get a new palace guard to take the trial. This was Yi Xian's plan. Chapter 579. Reassessment. Very quickly. Another day passed. Shi Xiao and the others had been waiting for the man in silver armor for a long time. Yi Xian, what should we do now? Asked Shi Xiao, frowning. It seems like Brother Chen had an accident. Should we go back and report this to the higher-ups? Said Lin Feng before Yi Xian could say anything. Agreed. Brother Chen is our examiner. If he has an accident, We can't take the exam anymore. Let's go back, said Wang En, nodding. Shi Xiao turned to Murong Shui and said, Miss Murong, what do you think? All right, said Murong Shui, nodding. I don't mind either, replied Yi Xian. He wanted to go back anyway. All right, let's go back. Something must have happened in the underground spider nest. We should report this to the higher-ups and then reassess, said Shi Xiao, flying back in the direction they had come from. When they had arrived, the man in silver armor had taken them a day. When they went back, it still took them a day. When the 5 of them arrived at the Champion Palace, they were noticed by a guard at the entrance. What are you doing here? Asked the guard, who was also wearing silver armor. Big brother, we are participating in the palace guard assessment this time. However, an accident happened to the palace guard in charge of the assessment and we were unable to come out of the Saint Beast lair, so we came back to report. Yi Xian landed on the ground and cupped his fists. What? The examiner had an accident? Where did you take the exam? Asked the guard, frowning. The underground spider nest on the west side of the palace, replied Yi Xian. The guard took out a scroll from his ring of cosmos and glanced at it. Chen Liang is in charge of the underground spider nest. When he saw the name of the examiner, his eyes lit up. You're Yi Xian? That's me, said Yi Xian, nodding. He wasn't surprised. Among the 100 geniuses who had taken the exam, only he and Sun Xingyu had understood abstruse energies. The guard would definitely recognize him. Tell me what happened in detail, the silver-armored palace guard said. Following that, Yi Xian told him the story he made up. It was just that when he was in the middle of killing, the silver-armored man suddenly called out to him and asked him to leave first. However, the silver-armored man never returned. That's strange. We've already explored that geocentric spider lair, and there's only a 75% geocentric spider king. Could it have encountered a large number of spiders and been surrounded and killed? The silver-armored palace guard narrowed his eyes and said, Wait here, I'll report to the captain. After he finished speaking, he turned around and entered the side hall while Yi Xian and the other 4 waited there. Not long after, he walked out with a young man in golden armor. The young man in golden armor had already heard of what had happened. He walked out and looked at Yi Xian. Now, I will lead all of you to the trial. The location of the trial will not change. It will still be the Earth Core Spider Lair. Yes. Yi Xian and the others nodded. The golden-armored young man immediately led the 5 of them away. Along the way, the young man in golden armor could not help but ask, Are the 5 of you from the Luosha region? Yes. My name is Huang Tianyu. I came here 5 years ago through the region lord. You might have heard of me, the young man in golden armor said. Huang Tianyu? Yi Xian and the others were stunned. They did not expect to meet a senior here. Although we came from the same place, don't think that I will help you. I will follow the rules of the trial. After the young man in golden armor finished speaking, he did not say anything else and continued on his way. One day later, Yi Xian and the other 4 returned to the Earth Core Spider Lair. There are 100 poison sacs in the Earth Core Spider Lair. The time limit is 2 days. Yi Xian, you go first, Huang Tianyu said. Yi Xian nodded silently as he carefully guarded against Huang Tianyu. However, when he flew to the entrance of the Earth Core Spider Lair, he realized that Huang Tianyu did not follow him. Huang Tianyu had joined the Warlord Hall 5 years ago and his attribute conversion had already reached 90%. He was much stronger than the silver-armored man. If he had followed, Yi Xian might have been in danger. However, since he did not follow, Yi Xian was not worried. Moreover, this indirectly proved that Huang Tianyu was not a half-demon. Of course, this was only a possibility. Yi Xian re-entered the Earth Core Spider Lair. He estimated that he would be able to flip the entire lair in 2 days. He had wanted to find a chance to clear out this lair. Now he had a chance. 2 days. Kill. Yi Xian's eyes flashed as he began a frenzied slaughter. Previously, he could even kill the Earth Core Spider King. After breaking through, this Earth Core Spider Lair was no longer a threat to him. Therefore, he turned the entire lair upside down and took away all the treasures. Of course, he did not go too far. He left behind many Earth Core spiders. After a day and a half, Yi Xian finally came out. His attribute conversion had reached 63 points. Although it was only 1 point, breaking through in less than 2 days was very fast for him. Yi Xian, you're really amazing. You actually still have the energy to look for treasures. Shi Xiao could not help but say. Yi Xian smiled awkwardly. At this time, Huang Tianyu snorted coldly. Stop talking nonsense. Next. He had a bad temper. Yi Xian had already completed the test, but he had not come out yet. How dare he make him wait outside? If Yi Xian had not understood the abstruse meaning, he would have flipped out on the spot. Before Yi Xian had entered, the order had already been set. Murong Shui was next. After hearing Huang Tianyu's words, she had jumped into the earth core spider lair. Her attribute conversion had reached 70%. Killing these earth core spiders would only take one strike. Therefore, she came out in a few hours. Next was Shi Xiao. He was not bad. He came out in half a day. The next one was Lin Feng. Lin Feng and Wang En's attribute conversion had reached 55%. Although it was higher than the earth core spiders, they needed time to recover and kill them slowly. Lin Feng spent more than a day to complete the test. As for Wang En, after 2 days, he did not come out of the earth core spider lair. Huang Tianyu did not know whether he was dead or delayed. The time limit for the test was 2 days. Since he did not come out, it meant that he had been eliminated. Therefore, Huang Tianyu did not wait for him. Let's go. When the time was up, Huang Tianyu took Yi Xian and the others back to the Battle King Hall. Their group was the slowest. When they came back, all the other participants had already returned. There is still a second round. If you get a good ranking, you may get a hollow godly weapon. Do your best. After returning, Huang Tianyu said to Yi Xian. Then he left. Chapter 580. Translator, Transin Editor. Transin Reward Battle. However, the ethereal divine weapon that Huang Tianyu mentioned made Yi Xian and the other three's eyes light up. It was an ethereal divine weapon. Although a spirit stage martial artist couldn't use an ethereal divine weapon, the amplification was definitely better than the best celestial artifacts. The second round? It seems that I have to take first place. In the future, even if I don't use the Bahuang sword, I can use other ethereal divine weapons to replace it. My strength will increase tremendously, Yi Xian thought to himself as he returned to his residence. However, what he didn't know was that Huang Tianyu, who he didn't think was a half-beast, had also gone to look for the Deputy Hall Master. At this moment, in a residence in the Warlord Hall. Deputy Hall Master, I'm back. Huang Tianyu knelt down on one knee. What clues did you find? The Deputy Hall Master frowned and asked. Nothing. There's still no news of Chen Liang. He should be dead. Huang Tianyu shook his head. Do you think he was killed by Yi Xian or did he die in the nest? The Deputy Hall Master asked. Huang Tianyu hesitated for a moment before replying. I think that Yi Xian didn't have the strength to kill Chen Liang. Therefore, I think that there's something wrong with the nest. I'm going to investigate it later. There's no need for that. I'll send someone else to investigate. Once Yi Xian passes the test, he'll be assigned to your team. The Deputy Hall Master said. Then, he doesn't need to go to the main hall? Huang Tianyu asked again. How can we send such a good seedling to the main hall? Moreover, the main hall is filled with experts. It's easy for him to be exposed. Let him stay in your team and observe him. If you find anything wrong, you can kill him. I heard that there are 2 ethereal divine beasts in the area under our jurisdiction. I'm going to refine 2 half-beast hearts. After the Deputy Hall Master finished speaking, he turned around and said, You can go first. The main hall will send someone to investigate later. You should go out and walk around. Don't stay in the sub-hall. It's easy to expose yourself. Yes, Deputy Hall Master. Huang Tianyu nodded and left the room. He was also a half-beast. He was a half-beast. As for the Deputy Hall Master Huang Tianyu Mao NN. Very quickly, another 3 days passed. During these 3 days, Yi Xian had stayed in his residence. However, he couldn't increase his power Upanishad by cultivating blindly. Fighting was faster. 3 days later, someone called the 4 of them to gather at the entrance of the branch hall. This was the second round of the palace guard assessment. Yi Xian already knew what it was. It was a battle. When the 4 of them arrived at the entrance, there were already dozens of geniuses from the 12 domains gathered here. Before the examination, the total number of people had exceeded 100. But after the first round, Only half of the participants remained. Indeed, the Battle Emperor Hall wanted elites. Those who were weak were all eliminated. At this time, the average attribute conversion of these geniuses was estimated to have reached 60. Among these people, there were many geniuses who had achieved 70% attribute conversion, the same level as Murong Shui. Some were even higher than her, achieving 75% attribute conversion. However, the strongest amongst them was naturally Sun Xingyu, who had comprehended the profundity of the Midas touch. Metal-type attacks were the strongest, and there were few Earth-type attacks that countered Metal-type attacks, so Sun Xingyu could be considered the strongest. After him was Yi Xian. If Yi Xian had just arrived at the Battle Emperor Hall's branch hall, he might have been afraid of Sun Xingyu. But now, Yi Xian was confident that he could kill Sun Xingyu. After waiting outside for a while, a group of palace guards walked out from inside. The leader was a young man in golden armor. He was the one who had tested Yi Xian's group of 5, Huang Tianyu. The second round of the palace guard assessment begins now. Huang Tianyu looked around and said loudly, "All of you are considered to have joined the Battle Emperor Hall. The second round of the assessment is not for elimination, but for rewards. All of you add up to 60 people. Next, you will be divided into 12 groups of 5 people. After that, the 5 of you will fight in a chaotic battle. The last person standing will be promoted to captain when he has enough contribution points." Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard Huang Tianyu's words. Did that mean that they were now palace guards of the Battle Emperor Hall? So this round was for rewards. This was good news. There will be a total of 3 rounds in the second round of the assessment. The first round will determine 12 people, the second round will determine 6 people, and the third round will determine 3 people. The last 3 people will receive a hollow divine weapon as their reward. Huang Tianyu said. This time, the crowd burst into an uproar. The reward is a hollow divine weapon? Wow, there's a hollow divine weapon. This is awesome. Awesome my ass. You only converted 60% of your attributes. Do you think you can enter the top 3? Why not? I can't beat Sun Xingyu. I heard that Yi Xian converted less than 60% of his attributes. If we meet, it's hard to say who will win. Keep bragging. He can easily defeat you. Everyone started whispering to each other. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Out of the 3 hollow divine weapons, he had reserved one. All right, let's start drawing lots. Huang Tianyu took out a pot with 12 bamboo sticks and let these people draw one by one. 1, 3, 10, 6, 12. There were 12 bamboo sticks in the container, representing 12 groups. Each stick could be drawn 5 times at most. After a short time, Huang Tianyu came back with the container. Yi Xian drew a stick, number 12. Then, Murong Shui drew number 3, Shi Xiao drew number 5, and Lin Feng drew number 7. Very quickly, all 60 people finished drawing lots. All right, number 15, come out. When drawing lots, everyone was paying attention to the numbers of the people around them. However, they didn't know each other and there were so many of them, so the number 15 didn't know their opponent's strength. After hearing Huang Tianyu's words, the 5 of them walked out from the crowd and stood in front of the crowd in 5 different directions. In this open space, 4 sword scars had already carved out an arena. You can fly, but you can't fly more than 5 meters. The one who leaves the arena loses. Also, you can't kill. Let's start. Huang Tianyu reminded them. When Huang Tianyu's voice faded away, the 5 of them didn't move at all. They surveyed the surroundings. Because they didn't know the strength of the others, they couldn't recklessly make a move. The 5 people remained silent for a few seconds. Then, one of them couldn't help but attack the person on his left. In an instant, the other 3 people attacked as well. The 4 people reached a consensus in an instant. The unlucky guy's face darkened. He quickly retreated and shouted, "I surrender." This was not a battle to the death. It was just a reward battle. Since they were already palace guards, they didn't need to risk their lives. Although they weren't allowed to kill, they could still make mistakes. When this person admitted defeat, a palace guard immediately took action and destroyed the 4 attacks one by one. The person who had admitted defeat was safe and sound. Chapter 581. Translator, Transin Editor. Transin turning stone into gold. The 4 of them remained silent for a moment before attacking. This time, they did not reach a consensus, so a chaotic battle broke out. At this time, Shi Xiao, who was watching from the sidelines, suddenly approached Yi Xian and whispered, "Yi Xian, that person has been looking at you." Hearing this, Yi Xian paused and followed Shi Xiao's gaze. He saw a young man in white. Could it be that he is Sun Xingyu? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and looked into his opponent's eyes. His opponent's eyes were full of murderous intent. Yi Xian looked at him in confusion. This was his first time seeing Sun Xingyu. Why was he so hostile towards him? After thinking about it for a while, he finally understood. Sun Xingyu was of the metal attribute, while he was of the earth attribute. Both of them had comprehended profound meaning, so in Sun Xingyu's eyes, Yi Xian was far more dangerous than the others. Obviously, Sun Xingyu also needed a hollow god weapon, so he was determined to make it to the top 3. He was not afraid of the others. Only Yi Xian could threaten him. "What number is he?" Yi Xian asked. "Look, I saw him. He's number 11. He almost fought you," Shi Xiao said in surprise. Sun Xingyu was number 11, and Yi Xian was number 12. They were so close to a winner in the first round. That was close. However, Yi Xian did not care. He needed a hollow god weapon anyway. If his opponent dared to block his way, he would just kick him away. At this time, the winner of the first arena was decided. The winner was a person with 65% attribute conversion. Then it was the second battle. There was nothing to see in the second battle. It was also a person with 65% attribute conversion who crushed the other 4. The third battle was Luo Sha region's Murong Shui. "Oh, it's a beauty. That's rare. Not bad, not bad. She's so graceful and curvy. If we could train together, it would definitely be awesome." "Shoo, lower your voice. I heard that her attribute conversion is 70% and she's only 22 years old." "What? 70%? It is said that among the 60 of us, including Sun Xingyu, only 5 of us have achieved 70% conversion." When they heard the news, those who had designs on Murong Shui immediately shut up. In this world where the strong were respected, there were still many female experts. If they were heard, then they would have a grudge and would definitely not have a good ending in the future. There was still no suspense in this round. The other 4 also knew Murong Shui's level, so they all admitted defeat to leave a good impression on her. Luck played a large part in this reward battle. As soon as the battle started, many people who were self-aware admitted defeat, so the battle was not very intense. He had won the battle with the stone puppet. As for Lin Feng, who had only converted 55% of his attributes, he admitted defeat as soon as he entered the arena. He knew that his strength was at the bottom, so there was no need to show off. Soon, it was the 11th round. Sun Xingyu is going on stage. Everyone's eyes lit up. Only then did they notice that there was another expert who had achieved 70% attribute conversion alongside Sun Xingyu. At this time, all 5 of them had already entered the arena. "I admit defeat. I admit defeat. I admit defeat." 3 voices rang out in a row. Except for Sun Xingyu and the cold-faced young man, the other 3 all admitted defeat. The 5 people's chaotic battle suddenly became a one-on-one battle. "You don't admit defeat?" Sun Xingyu looked at the cold-faced young man in front of him. "As far as I know, your ultimacy is Midas Touch. If this ultimacy doesn't hit the opponent, it won't have any effect." The cold-faced young man said indifferently. "Yes, but do you think you can fight against me?" Sun Xingyu narrowed his eyes. Midas Touch's metal element ultimacy was not very effective in a battle of pure qi. However, Sun Xingyu's strength was also very strong. He had converted 73 points to the cold-faced young man's 70 points. Although it was a small gap, Sun Xingyu's metal element ultimacy was stronger than the cold-faced young man's fire element ultimacy. Therefore, if the cold-faced young man wanted to win, it would depend on his martial arts attainment and battle experience. "Stop talking nonsense. Let's begin," Huang Tianyu shouted in his golden armor. Sun Xingyu's eyes flashed with displeasure. He snorted and said, "If that's the case, I'll send you out." In an instant, he attacked. At the same time, the cold-faced young man did the same. The metal element and the fire element were both attributes with strong attack power. However, if they were to compare, the metal element was still slightly better. As soon as the battle began, Sun Xingyu suppressed his opponent and forced him to retreat. The surrounding people also opened their eyes wide. They wanted to see what kind of effect Midas Touch's gold element ultimacy had. Bang! 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 The two of them began to exchange blows. The battle was very intense. Outside the arena. Yi Xian, if you were to fight against Sun Xingyu, how confident are you? Shi Dang could not help but ask. Hearing this question, Yi Xian paused. Although Sun Xingyu was strong, he could not even defeat the silver-armored man, let alone the silver-armored man who had undergone demon transformation. Yi Xian did not need to use the Bahuang sword to deal with him. He could use the demon god transformation to kill him instantly. 30%. Yi Xian answered casually. Oh, that's fine. There are 12 groups anyway. With so many people we might not necessarily meet him. Shi Dang comforted him. Suddenly, he did not know that Yi Xian was talking nonsense. Yi Xian nodded silently. He felt that Shi Dang was a good person. He could make friends with him. In the arena, the two experts who had transformed their attributes to 70% were fighting fiercely. At this time, the battle had reached its climax. Whoosh! Suddenly, a golden light flashed and brushed past the cold-faced young man's shoulder. In an instant, the cold-faced young man's shoulder was frozen. Ultimacy, Midas Touch. A golden stone instantly condensed on the cold-faced young man's shoulder. The circulation of his vital energy rapidly decreased. Not good. The cold-faced young man quickly dispelled the attack, but Sun Xingyu was not idle. Get out! Sun Xingyu's eyes flashed. He slashed at the cold-faced young man and sent him flying. Another golden stone condensed on the cold-faced young man's stomach. Because it was not a battle to the death, Sun Xingyu showed mercy and did not take his opponent's life. In a battle between experts, a small detail could often determine the outcome of the battle. After seeing the cold-faced young man being blasted out of the arena, a palace guard quickly rushed over and used his vital energy to help the cold-faced young man dispel the golden nugget. This palace guard happened to have Earth attribute vital energy. Moreover, his attribute transformation had reached 80%, so he easily dispelled the golden nugget. Chapter 582. Translator, Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio Yi Xian entered the arena. Thank you. The cold-faced youth thanked him. Round 11. Sun Xingyu won. Humph. You overestimate yourself. Sun Xingyu snorted coldly and left the arena. At the same time, he glanced at Yi Xian. The next round was Yi Xian's turn. Yi Xian ignored Sun Xingyu's glare and slowly walked out of the arena. He couldn't be bothered to compete with Sun Xingyu. If Sun Xingyu accidentally drew him in the next round, he wouldn't mind teaching this arrogant guy a lesson. If not, as long as Sun Xingyu didn't provoke him, he couldn't be bothered. Now, there were only 5 people left who hadn't entered the arena. After Yi Xian walked out, the other 4 paused for a moment. They were also hesitating. This was because Yi Xian had comprehended the profound meaning, but they hadn't. This wasn't because they were afraid of Yi Xian, but because they were afraid that Yi Xian would rise and cause trouble for them in the future. The 5 of them entered the arena and stood apart. However, the other 4 had their eyes on Yi Xian. After thinking for a moment, they made a decision. Whatever. Although this kid has comprehended the profound meaning, he might be sent to the main hall. If I can obtain a void god weapon, my strength will increase greatly. This was the thought in their minds. The 4 of them had all achieved 60% of their attribute conversion. However, they didn't know that Yi Xian had also achieved 60% of his attribute conversion. Their information was from before the assessment. If they were to compare realms, Yi Xian wasn't the weakest of the 5. Let's begin. Outside the arena, Huang Tianyu said impatiently. As soon as he finished speaking, the other 4 except for Yi Xian exchanged glances and reached a consensus. First, they would clear Yi Xian out of the arena. In an instant, the 4 of them launched attacks at Yi Xian. Haha, you think you can win against me? Yi Xian attacked 4 times in an instant and destroyed all the attacks. At the same time, he took a step forward. Battle Dragon's 10 steps. Throbbing pulse of the world. Second layer. Buzz. The 4 of them only felt a roar in their heads. By the time they reacted, they felt a pain in their chests. Shockingly, they had already fallen outside the ring. Yi Xian blasted the 4 of them out of the arena in an instant and won the 12th match. What's going on? Didn't you say that his attribute conversion was only 50% and not 60%? It's all nonsense. This is clearly 60%. Shocking 4 people with a single kick? Is that the throbbing pulse of the earth? Incredible. I wonder who is stronger between him and Sun Xingyu. The people outside began to discuss again. Sun Xingyu watched with a dark face. Apparently, Yi Xian's Upanishad was more practical than his. However, he wasn't envious. After all, he was of the metal element. If he could comprehend the metal guard in the future, then his defensive power would greatly increase. He wouldn't be any weaker than the pulsating guard. Powerful indeed. Huang Tianyu narrowed his eyes and watched with envy. His attribute conversion had already reached 90%. If he was given more time, he would be able to reach the peak of the spirit stage. However, if he didn't comprehend the Upanishad, then he wouldn't be able to break through to the void god realm. Right now, all 12 matches had been completed. Out of the 60 people, only 12 people had been eliminated. Out of the 12 people, other than Yi Xian, all of them had converted at least 65% of their attributes. Among them, there were even 4 who had converted 70% of their attributes. The 12 of you can go to the martial arts hall and choose a void god rank martial art. Huang Tianyu said. A void god rank martial art was better than a heaven rank martial art. It was a martial art that allowed people to comprehend the Upanishad better. Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. What was their purpose for coming to the Warlord Hall? Wasn't it to learn more powerful martial arts and become stronger? Although only 12 people had obtained it, they would be able to obtain merit points as long as they went out to do missions. Once they had enough merit points, they would be able to exchange for a void god rank martial art. Alright, let's move on to the second round. The winner will be able to choose another void god rank martial art. Huang Tianyu took out the pot from before. This time he was the one who drew the lot. Everyone held their breaths. Would there be a good show to watch in the second round? Other than Sun Xingyu and Murong Shui, there were 2 others who had converted 70% of their attributes. Adding on Yi Xian, the chances of them facing each other was very high. Soon, the order of the 6 matches was out. Sun Xingyu faced a person who had converted 65% of his attributes. The same went for Murong Shui. Yi Xian faced a person who had converted 70% of his attributes. As for Shi Xiao, he faced an opponent of the same level. The first match was against Sun Xingyu. There was no suspense in this match. Sun Xingyu's opponent chose to forfeit. Number 2's opponent was number 3, and number 3 was Murong Shui. Therefore, his opponent also forfeited. The third match was between number 4 and number 6. They fought to their heart's content. In the end, number 4 won. The fourth match was between number 5, Shi Xiao, and an opponent who had converted 65% of his attributes. It was supposed to be a good show. However, Shi Xiao's opponent had the metal attribute. Hence, Shi Xiao suppressed him and lost. In the fifth match, number 7 faced another expert who had converted 70% of his attributes. He had no choice but to forfeit. Then, it was time for Yi Xian's 7th match. Everyone had been waiting for a long time. After all, this was the highlight of the show. If they won, they would be able to learn another virtual god martial art. They would not need any merit points. Everyone present knew that Yi Xian and the young man in white would not choose to forfeit. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Xian and the young man in white slowly walked out. After entering the arena, the young man in white could not help but say, "I'm very envious of you. You actually comprehended ultimacy. It's just good luck." Yi Xian smiled. "I think that luck is also a part of one's strength. You have comprehended ultimacy, but my realm is higher than yours. Furthermore, I can restrain your attributes. Hence, I have a higher chance of winning this match," the young man in white continued. "It's useless to have a higher chance of winning. Even if my chances of winning are less than 50%, I still have a chance of winning." Yi Xian smiled again. He really did not want to bicker with his opponent. A man should use his fists instead of his mouth. High chance of winning? What a joke. With Yi Xian's current realm, even if the silver-armored man was not dead, he was confident that he could kill him in an instant, let alone this young man in white. The white-robed young man finished speaking. He took out a long sword and was ready to strike. "Let's begin," Huang Tianyu said. Whoosh! In an instant, the young man in white made his move. This match was related to virtual god martial arts. If he won, he would be able to learn 2 martial arts at once. Unfortunately, his opponent was Yi Xian. "I don't want to reveal too much of my strength. I'll take care of you quickly," Yi Xian thought to himself. In the next moment, he took a step forward. Battle Dragons 10 Steps. Chapter 583. Translator. Transin Editor. Transin Slightly Better. Earth-splitting sword. Earth-splitting sword. Earth-splitting sword. 3 earth-splitting swords flew past the white-clothed young man's feet. They were so fast that the white-clothed young man could not react to them. The white-clothed young man was at the same level as Li Xiu and had the same attributes. Yi Xian was able to defeat Li Xiu that day. How could he be defeated today? 3 swords. Yi Xian only used 3 swords to send the white-clothed young man flying out of the arena. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. 3 swords in less than a second. This was an instant kill. So strong. He defeated someone of a higher level in an instant. Is this the power of ultimacy? No, the earth-throbbing sword only increases attack power, not attack speed. That kid's physique is better than ours. He defeated a genius with 70% attribute conversion in an instant. Doesn't that mean Sun Xingyu is also powerless in front of him? Some people were discussing this in private. Not only them, but even Sun Xingyu was the same. He finally understood the difference between him and Yi Xian. He was now envious of Yi Xian because the practicality of the earth-throbbing sword had far surpassed the ultimacy of Midas. Humph! Sun Xingyu snorted in displeasure at the thought of this. The battle ended. Yi Xian won and advanced to the top 6. As long as Yi Xian won another battle, he would be able to obtain a virtual god weapon. At that time, with the virtual god weapon in hand, the earth-splitting sword, the war dragon stomp, and the deadly wind formation, who would be his match? Next, Huang Tianyu drew another lot. This round was extremely important. Sun Xingyu, Murong Shui, Yi Xian, and Shi Shao. Out of the remaining 2, one had 70% attribute conversion, while the other had 65% attribute conversion. I wonder who's fighting whom? Everyone was curious. At the same time, they hoped that Yi Xian and Sun Xingyu would meet. The battle between 2 geniuses who had comprehended ultimacy would be very exciting. However, the one who was the most emotional at this time was the stone puppet. This was because among the 6 of them, there was another person whose strength was similar to his. As long as Shi Feng fought against this person, he had a 50% chance of winning. At that time, he would be able to obtain a void god weapon. His strength might even be able to catch up to those who had achieved 70% attribute conversion. At this time, Huang Tianyu had finished drawing 3 rounds and decided on the order. He shouted loudly, the first round, number 3 against number 11. The second round, number 5 against number 9. The third round, number 10 against number 12. What? Everyone pondered for a moment before taking their seats. The first round was between Sun Xingyu and Murong Shui. The second match was between the stone puppet and the cultivator whose attribute had been converted to 65%. The third match was between Yi Xian and the last genius who had converted 70% of his attributes. After hearing the order of the battle, Yi Xian glanced at it. Murong Shui looked helpless, while Shi Shao was very excited. A 1 in 5 chance, and he actually encountered it. Now that everyone knew that Huang Tianyu didn't like to talk nonsense, Sun Xingyu and Murong Shui walked out directly. The void god weapon was also very attractive to Murong Shui. She wouldn't admit defeat. When the 2 of them reached the center of the arena, Sun Xingyu sneered, "You'd better get down. I won't show you mercy just because you're a woman. Please make your move." Murong Shui didn't say much. Her slender fingers gripped her long sword tightly. "Humph, you're courting death." Sun Xingyu's eyes flashed with a strange light. For a strong person like him, if he wanted a woman, countless beauties would throw themselves at him. Beauty was no longer useful to him. Since Murong Shui was so stubborn and wanted to fight, then he would accompany her. This time, without waiting for Huang Tianyu to speak, Sun Xingyu directly attacked. Whoosh! A golden sword chi with astonishing offensive power swept directly towards Murong Shui. Murong Shue's genuine chi was of the water attribute, so she couldn't fight it head-on. She immediately dodged. The metal attribute had the strongest attack, while the water attribute had many moves. Even if they fought head-on, the water attribute would at most be cut by the metal attribute, and it would still attack Sun Xingyu. However, Murong Xue did not do so. In the field, the two of them had already started to fight. Outside the field, the crowd began to discuss softly. Sun Xingyu is too ungentlemanly. He's so ruthless. That's right. Miss Murong is a woman. Do you think it's easy for her to stand here? Nonsense, this battle concerns the virtual god weapon. If it were you, would you show mercy? When these words were said, the surrounding people fell silent. Yi Xian, who do you think will win? Shi Yong couldn't help but ask. Sun Xingyu's attribute conversion is slightly better. Moreover, he has the metal attribute, so his attack power is strong. Unless Murong Xue's combat experience is far greater than his, it will be difficult for her to win. Yi Xian expressed his opinion. Under such circumstances, it would depend on whose martial arts attainments were higher and whose combat experience was richer. This battle didn't cause much of a commotion. The two of them were moving quickly in the field. Sun Xingyu constantly attacked with his golden sword Qi, while Murong Xue defended herself with a lotus-like sword Qi. Water Lotus Explosion. At this moment, Murong Xue's eyes suddenly flashed. Bang! The lotus flower that she blasted out suddenly exploded in front of Sun Xingyu. Countless water droplets shot in all directions. Sun Xingyu was stunned. He quickly defended himself, but many of them still hit him. Damn it! Sun Xingyu cursed in his heart. He was shocked to find that Murong Xue's genuine qi had entered his body through these small wounds, obstructing the flow of his genuine qi. This scene fell into everyone's eyes. The water attribute is so strange. The sword qi that was thrown out can explode. It's impossible to guard against. The metal attribute genuine qi is sharp. It can't completely destroy the lotus. Sun Xingyu is in trouble. Tisk. TSK. TSK. Is Sun Xingyu going to lose here? When Sun Xingyu heard the mocking laughter of the surrounding people, he was very angry. Who was he? He was a genius who had comprehended the ultimacy. How could he lose to someone whose cultivation level was lower than his? Most importantly, Murong Xue was a woman. This made him feel even more ashamed. Bitch, I didn't want to reveal it. You forced me to do this. Sun Xingyu shouted. The long sword in his hand suddenly lit up. As he thrust out his long sword, a golden round ball instantly destroyed a water lotus. This is... The eyes of the experts outside the field lit up. They felt that this move had surpassed the realm of Tian-level martial arts. This was Void God martial arts. If this move landed on Murong Xue, it would definitely be able to pierce through her chest in an instant. Therefore, Huang Tianyu couldn't stand it anymore. Boom! Chapter 584. Translator, Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio Green Light Sword Murong Xue, who did not have time to react, was blown out of the ring by the shockwave. Huh! Sun Xingyu was stunned and turned to look at Huang Tianyu. That's enough. You win this round. Huang Tianyu said. This round was not a battle of life and death but a battle of rewards. There was no need for any casualties. Moreover, Murong Xue was on Huang Tianyu's conversion list. It would be a waste if she died. Humph. Hearing this, Sun Xingyu could only forcefully suppress his emotions, coldly snorted, and then walked out. Murong Xue, I declare you the loser. Do you have any objections? Huang Tianyu asked. Murong Xue shook her head with a look of pity. If Sun Xingyu did not know any hollow god martial arts, she would have won. Then, she would have a hollow god weapon. Unfortunately, her opponent still had a trump card. Next, it was Shi Zhao's turn to fight another person who had converted 65% of his attributes. This battle was rather intense. For the sake of that faux divine weapon, the stone puppet even risked its life. Finally, it managed to knock the other party out of the arena. Although the other party did not land on the ground, as long as he crossed the line, he would lose. Haha, I, Shi Zhao, am going to have a hollow god weapon. Shi Zhao roared. The surrounding people all had envious expressions on their faces. In terms of strength, there were many who were stronger than Shi Zhao. However, Shi Xiao was lucky to have passed 3 rounds. In the last round, he had to rely on Yi Xian's Dragon War Stomp and Earth-Splitting Sword to win. Otherwise, he would have been defeated. Therefore, he had to thank Yi Xian. These 2 martial arts were given to him by Yi Xian. As they were inferior, he learned them quickly. Now, 2 out of the 3 hollow god weapons had been won. Next was the 3rd round. In the last round, Yi Xian defeated a genius who had converted 70% of his attributes. This time, his opponent was of a similar level. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Yi Xian and his opponent landed on the arena. "I admit defeat." As soon as Yi Xian landed, his opponent shouted. Sure enough, the other party was terrified. It couldn't be helped. Yi Xian's strength had already far surpassed the other geniuses. Even Sun Xingyu might not be a match for him. If he didn't admit defeat, would he wait to lose face? At least you have some self-awareness. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. It seemed that the 3rd illusionary divine weapon would be his. This brat can instantly kill a martial artist with 70% attribute conversion. However, this is still not enough to kill Chen Liang. Huang Tianyu thought to himself as he watched Yi Xian slowly walk over. Chen Liang was the silver-armored man from before. His attribute conversion had reached 80%, and he also had the heart of a half-demon. In his demon form, his strength was not something that Yi Xian could withstand. Unless Yi Xian had a virtual divine weapon. There are only 2 regions where a void divine weapon has appeared. This Luo Sha region has never had one, so he shouldn't have one. Therefore, something must have happened to Chen Liang. This Yi Xian shouldn't know that the Warlord Branch Hall has been infiltrated by the demon clan. Huang Tianyu thought to himself and then raised his head. His actions caused everyone to be somewhat baffled. In the next moment they understood. It turned out that someone was watching from the sky. Ha ha ha, not bad, not bad. This time, I have recruited some good seedlings. Here, these are 3 virtual divine weapons. Suddenly, a figure descended from the sky and hovered in front of everyone. It was an old man with white eyebrows. He waved his hand and threw 3 identical weapons to Yi Xian, Shi Xiao, and Sun Xingyu. Virtual divine weapons. Everyone's eyes lit up. At this moment, there were 3 virtual divine weapons in front of them. Unfortunately, they didn't dare to move. If anyone dared to snatch them, the consequences would be dire. Yi Xian hurriedly caught the virtual divine weapon and glanced at it. The long sword was exquisitely made and was very heavy. It was suitable for a man to use. Yi Xian knew that this was a void divine weapon, a low-grade one. This azure light sword was recently bought from the Weapon Lord Hall. It is a lower virtual divine weapon. When the 3 of you break through to the empty god realm, you can use your true chi to nurture it. It is priceless. Don't lose it. The Warlord Hall Elder said with a smile. Virtual divine weapons were very precious to those in the spirit realm. However, for people in his level, he could obtain a lot of them. When martial artists started to allow virtual divine weapons, they treated them like children. Even if they obtained a middle virtual divine weapon, they might not use it. After all, not all lower virtual divine weapons were worse than middle virtual divine weapons. Virtual divine weapons could be nurtured. As long as they were nurtured for a few dozen years, they would be more useful than middle virtual divine weapons. Of course, this depended on the speed of nurturing. Nurturing consumed true chi, so it couldn't be done constantly. Thank you, Elder. Yi Xian and the other 2 quickly bowed and expressed their gratitude. All right, bring all of you to register. All of you newcomers will first join an old group and be led by an old guard. After the white-eyebrowed elder finished speaking, he rushed into the Battle King Hall. All right, everyone follow me. Huang Tianyu shouted and entered the Warlord Hall. Everyone followed closely behind him. When Yi Xian moved, he felt a malicious gaze. He turned his head and saw Sun Xingyu looking at him with narrowed eyes. Sun Xingyu's eyes were filled with coldness. Yi Xian knew that Sun Xingyu wanted to fight with him. This was because the surrounding people thought that he was the first amongst the geniuses and Sun Xingyu was the second. It was that simple. Don't provoke me. Otherwise, I won't care who you are. Yi Xian snorted and followed behind Sun Xingyu. In fact, when everyone was fighting earlier, he had been observing their constitutions. Previously, the silver-armored man had used the half-demon's heart to bait him. The other groups might have half-demons as well, so he had to observe them to see who had better constitutions. However, he didn't discover anything because many of them had admitted defeat. Moreover, as long as they deliberately hid it, it would be difficult to find them. Perhaps not many half-demons have infiltrated the Warlord Hall, but they should come looking for me. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. He didn't believe that the Warlord Hall had been completely infiltrated. Otherwise, he would have been captured and forced to eat the half-demon's heart. Why would they do this? More than 60 people followed behind Huang Tianyu and arrived at a small hall. They registered and received a few sets of clothes and other miscellaneous items. Next, they had to wait for the small groups in the Warlord Hall to pick their members. Yi Xian, you're in my group! Huang Tianyu suddenly shouted. What? Yi Xian thought that he had misheard. Huang Tianyu was picking him? This? Yi Xian paused for a moment. The higher-ups have instructed that you and Sun Xingyu won't be sent to the main hall. Instead, you will be groomed by the side halls. Huang Tianyu said. Yi Xian raised an eyebrow. Chapter 585. Translator, Exodus Tales Editor, Exodus Tales Profound of Earth. Is this because it's rare for a genius like me to appear? Do they really want to nurture me, or do they want to keep me and wait for an opportunity to turn me into a half-demon? Yi Xian asked himself. He hesitated for a moment before nodding his head in the end. This was because he knew that if many demons had infiltrated, he might be attacked on his way to the main hall. If that happened, he would be in trouble. Therefore, he wanted to take a look first. At most, he could just leave. Huang Tianyu went to register. Then, Yi Xian became his team member. All right, you're now a member of my team. My team specializes in going out to carry out missions and earn merit points. You should adapt to the environment for a few days. After a while, I'll bring you out to carry out missions. After Huang Tianyu finished speaking, he brought Yi Xian to his team's residence. In the Warlord Palace, a team usually had around 5 people. Of course, there were also 7 to 8 people. Huang Tianyu's team only had 4 people. Including Yi Xian, there were 5 people. He brought Yi Xian to his residence. Yi Xian and the other 3 team members got familiar with each other. Then, they found a residence to stay in. I don't know if Huang Tianyu is a half-demon. It's better to be careful. Yi Xian reminded himself in his heart. Then, he changed into his silver armor and left his residence. He suddenly remembered that his reward was not only the Azure Light Sword. He could also go to the martial arts hall to obtain 2 Void God martial arts. Along the way, he encountered many Warlord Palace guards. These Warlord Palace guards were not weak. Silver armor meant that they were ordinary palace guards. Gold armor meant that they were squad leaders. Black armor meant that they were at the peak of the spirit stage. Now that Yi Xian had obtained the Azure Light Sword, he should be able to fight against squad leaders if he went all out. Of course, this referred to ordinary people and not the demons. Soon, he arrived at the martial arts hall. Hey, it's you? As soon as Yi Xian entered, he heard a familiar voice. He turned around and saw that it was an elder with white eyebrows. He was the elder of the Battle Emperor Hall who had given him the hollow divine weapon. Greetings, elder. I am here to receive 2 Void God martial arts. Yi Xian said respectfully. I know you have the earth element. Go to the 5th zone and choose for yourself. Just give me the number of whatever you like. Elder Bai Mei said. The martial arts hall's 5th district stored earth attribute Void God martial arts. Of course, there were also heaven-level martial arts, but Yi Xian was not interested in them at the moment. Wait a moment, kid. Just as Yi Xian was about to leave, Elder Bai Mei suddenly called out to him. Yi Xian turned around. Kid, you have comprehended the throbbing pulse of the world and the pulse guard, right? Elder Whitebrows asked. Yes, senior. Yi Xian nodded. If you want to comprehend more ultimacies, go and get the Emperor Dragon Fist and the Martial Dragon Movement Technique. Elder Bai Mei said. Yi Xian paused for a moment. He understood what Elder Bai Mei meant. His throbbing pulse of the world was actually comprehended from the Martial Dragon Stomp. Senior, what ultimacies can I comprehend from these 2 martial arts? Yi Xian asked curiously. These 2 martial arts were obtained from the main palace. It is said that an expert comprehended the strength ultimacy of the earth ultimacy based on the Emperor Dragon Fist. As for the Martial Dragon Movement Technique, There is a precedent for comprehending the underground movement technique. Elder Bai Mei explained. Strength. Underground movement technique. Yi Xian did not know much about ultimacies. He did not even know about the earth element. Hence he quickly asked, Senior, what are the effects of these two ultimacies? The strength ultimacy, as the name suggests, can increase your strength explosively. A single sword strike can split mountains and split the earth. As for the underground movement technique ultimacy, it can greatly increase your running speed on land. If you comprehend it deeply enough, you can even comprehend the second level of the underground movement technique, shrinking the earth. This is a godly skill that can allow you to break through the earth and move at high speeds. It is several times faster than imperial air flight. Elder Bai Mei said. After hearing this, Yi Xian's eyes were already filled with stars. The second level of the underground movement technique allowed him to move several times faster than imperial air flight. In the future, he would be able to travel freely. As for the second level of the ultimacy, Yi Xian actually knew one as well. It was the pulse guard. Branch ultimacy was also called the second level of the ultimacy. Senior, isn't there another gravity ultimacy? Yi Xian quickly asked. Oh right. There is also the gravity ultimacy. However, I have never heard of anyone comprehending this ultimacy. I only heard that this ultimacy can force a person onto the ground. Elder Bai Mei chuckled and said, Think about it. If you comprehend the Earth Pulse Guard, underground movement technique, gravity ultimacy, and strength ultimacy, who will be your match in the future? Yi Xian followed his words and imagined a scene in his mind. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. If he could comprehend these four ultimacies, he would be the one calling the shots on land in the future. No, even if someone was flying in the air, he would be able to force them down. Haha, that is why I feel that the earth element spirit is the most powerful type. Elder Bai Mei looked at Yi Xian and laughed. Senior, can you tell me more about the ultimacies of the other elements? Yi Xian was suddenly interested and quickly asked. Sure, but I am just an ordinary void god realm cultivator. I don't know much. Elder Bai Mei paused and said, You already know about the metal element Midas Touch. Apart from that, there is also the metal defense. This metal defense is the second level ultimacy of the Midas Touch. It can condense a golden armor around the body for defense. This golden armor is indestructible. The wood element is rapid healing. There is also death withering. The former can heal injuries, while the latter is used for attack. If anyone is brushed by it, their body will rapidly wither. This is much more effective than the normal wood element True Qi. The water element is Stacking Waves ultimacy. It is the same as your strength ultimacy. Apart from that, there is also the binding of water. It uses True Qi to bind the enemy and slow down their movements. The fire element is Inextinguishable Flames. It is the enhancement of fire element attacks. However, this flame is extremely difficult to extinguish and is very difficult to deal with. Apart from that, there is also the fire rebirth ultimacy. It is similar to the wood element rapid healing, but it cannot heal others. As for the earth element, there is the earth pulse guard, strength ultimacy, gravity ultimacy, and underground movement technique. These are the ultimacies that I know. Of course, there may be others, but I have never heard of them. Yi Xian was already immersed in the knowledge. He did not expect that the 5 elements would have so many ultimacies. Moreover, his earth element ultimacy seemed to have the most. However, Elder Bai Mei also said that these were only the ultimacies that he knew. There may be more ultimacies that he did not know. In any case, it was awesome. Chapter 586. Quest, Ice, Flame, Wind? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and asked, Not everyone has these attributes, right? Yes, everyone has the normal 5 elements. These attributes are 1 in a million and are extremely powerful. Ice and flame are the strengthening of water and fire. They have both the water and fire attributes. The white-browed old man nodded. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Ice and flame. This made him think of 2 people, Song Sui Jing and Adjudicator Song. The yin-yang dual life body. Could it be ice and flame? Yi Xian recalled that when he entered the cultivation room of the 2 of them, he felt an ice-cold and scorching heat. It was not strange for it to be hot, but Song Sui Jing was not water, but ice. So that's how it is. Yi Xian instantly understood. Unfortunately, Adjudicator Song and Song Sui Jing had disappeared. Yi Xian had spent half a year looking for them, but he still could not find them. However, Yi Xian understood that they were not dead. They were probably chosen by an expert during their travels and were brought back to be nurtured. This was because Yi Xian had given a pair of earrings to Song Sui Jing. Although it did not have a life-saving effect, he would know if anything happened to Song Sui Jing. Okay, it's useless for you to know this now. There are too few people who have comprehended profound at the spirit stage. You should go and choose an Nihility God martial art. The white-browed old man waved his hand. The spirit stage that he was talking about did not include those who had reached the peak of the spirit stage with 100 points. He was referring to those who had not reached 100 points in their attribute conversion. Yes, Senior. Yi Xian nodded and immediately entered the fifth area of the martial arts hall. There were piles of earth attribute martial arts here. After browsing for a while, he realized that there were too few earth attribute martial arts. There were only 12 of them, which was enough to fill a single bookshelf. The earth, wood and water attributes were relatively rare, so there were naturally fewer martial arts. Yi Xian glanced at the bookshelf and found the Emperor Dragon Fist and Martial Dragon Movement technique that the white-browed old man had mentioned. He immediately took them out. Sure enough, they were empty. Senior, I've chosen. Yi Xian walked to the entrance of the martial arts hall and said to the white-browed elder. The white-browed old man glanced at them and said, "Go find a room. Someone will give you the 2 martial arts later. Remember, you are not allowed to copy them, and you are not allowed to teach them to others. Once discovered, you will be killed on the spot." Yes. Yi Xian nodded and found an empty room on the first floor of the martial arts hall. Not long after, a palace guard brought over 2 martial arts. They were the Emperor Dragon Fist and the Dragon Martial Movement technique. Although these 2 martial arts techniques were copied down, Yi Xian still had to memorize them himself, just in case. Recently, when Yi Xian killed people, the number of martial arts he obtained had decreased. This was because these people had all memorized them in their minds. If he copied it down and was killed, then the martial arts would be spread out. Even if someone were to question them, they might reveal it immediately. However, there were also those with moral integrity who would rather die than admit it and not mention it at all. However, this did not matter to Yi Xian. Immediately, he copied the 2 martial arts techniques into the engulfing system and started learning them. Ding! Host has learned the Emperor Dragon Fist. Current proficiency is 10%. Ding! Host has learned the Dragon Martial Movement technique. Current proficiency is 10%. Yi Xian had not learned any new martial arts for a long time. The Sword of Earth Fisher and Dragon War Stomp that he used previously were bought when he was in the Heavenly Pulse realm. The Sword of Earth Fisher and Dragon War Stomp were very powerful after fusing with the Earth Pulse. However, they were not enough in a place where geniuses gathered. Now that he had the Dragon Martial Movement technique, Yi Xian's combat strength had increased by another level. After all, this was a Void God martial arts technique. Then, he stayed in the room for half a day before he left. This was the Battle King Hall. Although it was only a side hall, the main hall was too big. All the buildings were inside, including the martial arts field. Yi Xian went to the martial arts field and started practicing the Emperor Dragon Fist and Dragon Martial Movement technique. Previously, the Sword of Earth Fisher improved quickly because it was only a heaven-level martial arts technique. Moreover, it was enhanced by the Sword Saint bloodline. Now, the Emperor Dragon Fist would not improve that quickly. However, Yi Xian still had the Fist Emperor bloodline, which increased his comprehension by 30%. Ha! Yi Xian found a corner and started practicing the Emperor Dragon Fist. He unleashed a fist strike, and his Earth-type true energy transformed into a heavenly dragon that shot forward. This move also contained the power of the second order of the throbbing pulse of the world. The Earth Pulse was very practical. It could be used on any martial arts technique, including the Dragon Martial Movement technique. Currently, these 2 martial arts were only at 10%. However, when the Dragon Martial Movement technique was combined with the Earth Pulse, its power was comparable to the Dragon War 10 steps. It was worthy of being a Void God martial arts technique. Ding! Emperor Dragon Fist's proficiency has increased. Current proficiency is 20%. Ding! Dragon Martial Movement technique's proficiency has increased. Current proficiency is 20%. Ding! Emperor Dragon Fist's proficiency has increased. Current proficiency is 30%. Ding! Dragon martial movement techniques proficiency has increased. Current proficiency is 30%. Ding! Emperor Dragon Fist's proficiency has increased. Current proficiency is 40%. Yi Xian stayed in the martial arts field for an entire day and finally increased the proficiency of these two martial arts to 30% and above. Emperor Dragon Fist's proficiency was 40% and its power was extraordinary. Fortunately, he was in a small room in the martial arts field and no one saw him. If others saw him practicing 2 Void God martial arts in a day and increasing his proficiency by such a high level, they would be scared half to death. Even a Void God realm expert would need at least a month to learn Void God martial arts. If they wanted to increase their proficiency, they would need to accumulate over a long period of time, continuously practicing and fighting. However, Yi Xian could reach such a high level just by practicing. After that, Yi Xian practiced diligently day and night. On the 3rd day after he joined the Warlord Palace and became a palace guard, someone knocked on the door of the training room. At this moment, Yi Xian's Emperor Dragon Fist had reached 60% proficiency, while his Dragon Martial Movement technique was at 40% proficiency. Because his realm was not high enough, the Emperor Dragon Fist could not reach 70% proficiency. He would need to wait until he reached the Void God realm. Yi Xian opened the door and found his captain, Huang Tianyu, standing outside. "Captain." Yi Xian greeted. "I heard that you've been training for the past few days?" Huang Tianyu asked. "Yes." Yi Xian nodded. He had been training for the past few days. There was no doubt about it. "Very good. Then go back and prepare. You'll be going out for a mission in a while." Huang Tianyu was very satisfied. When Yi Xian heard this, his eyes lit up and asked, "What mission is it?" "Eliminate a group of bandits. They've been very rampant recently and have been robbing houses. They have a leader who is at the peak of the spirit stage." Huang Tianyu replied. Chapter 587. Bandits. The peak of the spirit stage represented an expert with an attribute conversion rate of 100. They only needed to comprehend the profound to break through to the Nihility God realm. Peak of the spirit stage? Is it only for our team? Yi Xian said in shock. "That's right. You don't have to worry. We are the elites of the Warlord Palace. If we can't even handle this, we might as well pack up and go home." Huang Tianyu said indifferently. "Indeed, who were they?" "They were the elites of the Warlord Palace." "Okay, I'll prepare." Yi Xian nodded. However, he didn't need to prepare anything. Although he had pulled several all-nighters, he was still full of energy. With the bloodline of the sacred tree of life, he didn't need to rest. "Then wait for me at the entrance." After Huang Tianyu finished speaking, he left. Yi Xian also went back to take a shower and gathered at the entrance of the branch palace. This was his first mission. It was also his first show after learning the Neo martial arts. It was inevitable for him to be excited. Before Huang Tianyu came out, Yi Xian, who was guarding outside the branch palace, saw an acquaintance. It was the stone puppet. "Hey, Yi Xian, you're also going to do a mission?" The stone puppet, who was wearing silver armor, came over and said with a smile. "Yes." Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and looked at the stone puppet. Although they belonged to the same faction, Yi Xian was still on guard against everyone. After all, there was the matter of the half-goblin. Half-goblins and humans were mortal enemies. He didn't know whether the stone puppet was a human or a half-goblin. "I'm also going to do a mission to destroy a sacred beast's nest." "What about you?" the stone puppet asked. "A bandit's nest." Yi Xian replied honestly. The stone puppet's eyes lit up. "That's a good job. Bandits are much richer than sacred beasts." "That's true, but it's also dangerous. The bandit leader is at the peak of the spirit stage," Yi Xian said. Between humans and sacred beasts of the same level, humans were more dangerous. The stone puppet did not refute. At this time, 3 more people came out of the hall. When the stone puppet saw them, he immediately said, "Yi Xian, be careful, I'm leaving." "All right, you be careful too." Yi Xian nodded. The Shi Shao had also joined a small team and was now carrying out a mission with 3 other members. The leader of this small team gave Yi Xian a strange look and then hurriedly left with his team. Not long after, Huang Tianyu also came out with 2 members. Yi Xian raised an eyebrow. He remembered that Huang Tianyu had a total of 3 members. Could it be that he had applied for leave? Captain, just the four of us? Yi Xian asked in surprise. That's right. One of them has made a breakthrough in his martial arts and needs to continue cultivating. He won't be participating in this mission. After Huang Tianyu finished speaking, he took out a piece of parchment from his universe ring and said, "There are over 300 people in this bandit lair. Even the weakest person has converted half of their attributes. There are 3 leaders. One of them is at the peak of the spirit stage, while the other 2 have converted 90% of their attributes. The reward for this mission is 3,000 merit points. We will break it down when the time comes." 3,000 merit points was not a low reward. Most importantly, this was a bandit lair. There was a lot of profit to be had. Yi Xian had asked around when he passed by. A Void God weapon required 50,000 merit points. A Void God level martial art required 10,000 merit points. However, don't forget that this reward was for the entire team. When the time comes, they will break it down. Yi Xian didn't ask any further questions. He just followed along. Let's go. Huang Tianyu gave the order and ran in a certain direction. Yi Xian and the other 2 members followed closely behind. Yi Xian, you seem to be using the martial dragon movement technique, right? Have you mastered it? One of the members smiled at Yi Xian. Yes, I finally mastered it after 4 days. Yi Xian nodded. He had seen this person before. His name was Zhou Huiren, and he had converted 85% of his attributes. He had joined the Warlord Palace for more than 10 years. He had also exchanged his merit points for a Void God martial art. However, due to his lack of aptitude, he had not been able to increase his proficiency. He looked at Yi Xian enviously and said, "A genius is a genius. Sigh, I wonder when I will be able to comprehend the profoundness." Old Zhou, why are you in such a hurry? It won't be too late for you to comprehend it after you reach the peak of the spirit stage. Another member called Peng Bo said. That's true. If I have enough aptitude, I will be able to comprehend it sooner or later. If I don't have enough aptitude, I will be stuck at the peak of the spirit stage. Zhou Huiren nodded. Huang Tianyu, who was leading the way, remained silent. At this moment, he was planning something in his mind. For example, when to convert Yi Xian. Yi Xian had obtained a Void God weapon and his strength had increased greatly. He estimated that he could only suppress Yi Xian for a short period of time. After that, he had no confidence in suppressing Yi Xian. Therefore, he had to convert Yi Xian. He had to convert Yi Xian into a half-fiend and make him one of them. This bandit's lair was only 2 days away from the branch palace. Previously, it was not rampant and was hidden well. Therefore, there were no missions. Yi Xian and the other 3 spent 2 days to arrive at the bandit's lair. At this moment, they were discussing countermeasures in the sky. Yi Xian, Zhou Huiren, you 2 deal with the small ones. Peng Bo, I'll leave the 2nd and 3rd leaders to you. I'll deal with the 1st leader. Do you have any problems with that? Huang Tianyu said. Yi Xian was stunned. This ordinary-looking Peng Bo was actually going to intercept the 2 leaders who had converted 90% of their attributes? Don't be surprised. Peng Bo obtained a Void God weapon when he was on a mission alone. His strength is only second to the leader. Zhou Huiren laughed. With this explanation, Yi Xian also understood. A Void God weapon was enough to increase his strength greatly. Moreover, Peng Bo also had a Void God martial arts. It was not difficult for him to stop the 2 of them. If that's the case, then let's go. If there's any pressure, then quickly retreat. Staying alive is more important. Huang Tianyu said. Understood. Yi Xian and the other 2 nodded. Kill. As soon as Huang Tianyu's voice fell, the 4 of them quickly rushed down. Yi Xian's eyes lit up. The bandits below were enjoying the delicacies. Some of them were even performing piston exercises in front of everyone. They were having a great time. He estimated that he might be able to achieve another breakthrough this time. Yi Xian, be careful. Zhou Huiren reminded. Then, he separated from Yi Xian and landed at a place where there were more bandits. Pa! Yi Xian used his true qi to increase his speed and quickly landed on the ground. At the same time, he also used the Earth's pulse. In an instant, more than 10 weaker bandits were killed. What? The bandits stopped what they were doing and looked at Yi Xian. After a while, they saw Yi Xian start killing people. Only then did they realize what was going on. Enemy attack. At this moment, Yi Xian had already taken out his Void God weapon, the Azure Light Sword, and executed the Demon God transformation. These were all bandits who had committed all sorts of crimes. No one would show mercy to them. Chapter 588. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Collusion. Although Yi Xian had learned the Emperor Dragon's Fist, he still hadn't given up on such a useful martial art like the Earth-Splitting Sword. However, he could retire the Dragon Warrior Stomp. After all, the martial dragon movement technique could also be combined with the throbbing pulse of the earth. Emperor Dragon Fist. Earth Shatter Sword. Yi Xian stood there. In less than 10 seconds, he'd killed dozens of bandits. These bandits had different strengths, and the weaker ones only had 50% of their attributes, while the stronger ones had 70%. However, no one could take a single blow from him. When the bandits who had just arrived saw Yi Xian's bravery, they were scared out of their wits and fled frantically. Yi Xian quickly cleaned up the corpses on the ground and devoured everything. Ding! Host's Earth attribute conversion has increased to 63 points. With the increase in realm, Yi Xian's strength skyrocketed. In a bandit nest, the richest ones are definitely the leaders. I can't let them take the loot. Yi Xian glanced at Zhou Huairan and saw that he did not feel much pressure, so he quickly flew toward Huang Tianyu and Peng Bo. It could not be said that he was stealing the credit. After all, they were a small team and should help each other. Yi Xian is actually so strong? Zhou Huairan was stunned when he saw Yi Xian escape. At this point, he had only killed a few dozen bandits. The 3 leaders of the bandits all lived on the mountain peak. Yi Xian quickly flew over. Before he got close, he saw a few figures. However, these figures were not fighting. Instead, they were gathered together and seemed to be talking. What's going on? Yi Xian quickly stopped. He saw Huang Tianyu and Peng Bo talking to 3 men. They seemed to know each other. Snakes and rats in the same nest. This thought flashed through Yi Xian's mind, but in the next moment, he thought of something else. Half-demons. Could it be that the 3 leaders have long since been transformed into half-demons? Yi Xian guessed in his heart. Of course, it was only a guess. Huang Tianyu could have colluded with the 3 of them. Leader, I'll help you. Yi Xian pondered for a moment in his heart, then loudly shouted and charged over. What? You came so quickly? Huang Tianyu heard this and attacked without hesitation. At the same time he said in a low voice, You 3, hurry up and leave. He did not expect Yi Xian to come to help in less than half a minute. Bang! 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 In the blink of an eye, Huang Tianyu and Peng Bo began to put on a show with the 3 leaders. Although the battle seemed fierce, they actually avoided the vital points. If it wasn't for Yi Xian's astonishing vision and seeing that scene, he really might have been deceived by them. Although I can't be sure they are. Yi Xian continued. He knew that his aptitude had attracted the attention of the demon race. The demon race definitely wanted to convert him, so he was not worried that Huang Tianyu would attack him. As long as he could get rid of these 3 and obtain the interspatial ring, his cultivation base might be able to increase again. Damn it, let's retreat. The first master's face darkened and he quickly retreated. Huang Tianyu gave chase, but he was only acting. After all, the 3 of them were half demons and were on his side. Don't even think about leaving. Yi Xian rushed over and attacked wildly. Get out of my way, brat. The 3rd master threw a punch at Yi Xian. A golden fist shadow flew toward Yi Xian. Oh no! Huang Tianyu's face darkened. He had forgotten to tell the 3 that Yi Xian was a genius on the conversion list. The 3rd master's attribute conversion had reached 90%, which was 30% higher than Yi Xian's. His attack was enough to kill a martial artist with 80% attribute conversion. But was Yi Xian an ordinary person? Emperor Dragon Fist. Coincidentally, Yi Xian also had a fist-type martial art. Bang! The 2 huge fist shadows collided and instantly exploded. Although Yi Xian's god realm was much lower, his Emperor Dragon Fist was a void god level martial art. Moreover, it was at 60% and was enhanced by the King of Fighters bloodline. As for the opponent's martial art, it was also a void god level martial art. However, it was probably only at 20 to 30%. It was already pretty good to be able to draw. This brat's aptitude is actually so good. It seems that I have to convert him quickly. If he doesn't agree, I can only use force. Huang Tianyu's eyes flickered. Converting into a shifter was actually a mission. As long as he succeeded, he would obtain a large amount of cultivation resources. If he succeeded, he might be able to cultivate all the way to the peak of the spirit stage. However, he had to deal with the current problem first. Captain Brother Pangbo, these 3 people are full of evil. We can't let them go. Yi Xian shouted. Huang Tianyu narrowed his eyes and made a decision in his heart. It seems that I have to place my hopes on these 2 people. Huang Tianyu thought to himself. Of the 3 heads, 2 of them had reached 90% attribute conversion, while the last one had reached the peak of the spirit stage. If the 3 of them were to use their shifter transformation, their strength would increase. The other 2 people were fine, but if the head, who was at the peak of the spirit stage, also used his shifter transformation, even Huang Tianyu would not be able to do anything to him. Let's capture those 2 first. Huang Tianyu shouted. His voice only reached Yi Xian and Peng Bo's ears. Okay. Peng Bo narrowed his eyes. He instantly understood Huang Tianyu's intention and chased after them. Damn it! The second head and third head looked at each other. They knew that if they did not use their shifter transformation, they would probably die here. Shifter transformation. The 2 of them did not hesitate and immediately used their shifter transformation. As for the Great Master, he fled without even turning his head. Kill! Seeing that the other party had already used their shifter transformation, Huang Tianyu's eyes were filled with killing intent. Although they were all half-demons, the leader of the bandit nest did not listen to his orders. Now that they were in a life-and-death situation, the other party might reveal his secret. Therefore he had to kill them quickly. Azure Light Sword, go! Huang Tianyu also took out his ethereal divine weapon and charged forward. When Yi Xian saw the 2 of them using their shifter transformation, he pretended to be stunned. Then, he began to attack with all his strength. At this moment, he understood that Huang Tianyu was also a half-demon. Previously, Huang Tianyu might not have recognized the 3 heads. However, half-demons might have a way of distinguishing their auras, which was why they were able to recognize them. And now, Huang Tianyu was going to eliminate them completely. In an instant, the 5 of them began to fight, while the head's figure had already disappeared into the horizon. Damn it! Big Brother actually left just like that. Didn't we agree to share the joys and sorrows together? The second head cursed in his heart. He was helpless because if the head returned and used his shifter transformation, he would definitely be able to turn the situation around. However, the head of the bandit nest was also a half-demon. He was afraid that he would be discovered and be hunted down. Therefore he did not turn back. After all, the recent deaths of the powerhouses from the Battle King Hall were related to him. Chapter 589. Translator, Transin Editor. Transin the matter was exposed. Although Yi Xian's cultivation level was low, his strength was not much weaker than Peng Bo's. If the 2 of them worked together they could fight against the second head. As for the third head, Huang Tianyu would be in charge. I have to end this quickly. Huang Tianyu thought to himself. He began to fight with the third head, but he intentionally distanced himself from Yi Xian, Peng Bo, and the second head. Hey, what are you trying to do? The third head asked softly. I'll give you a chance. Run away. Huang Tianyu said as he approached. The third head's eyes lit up when he heard that. He instantly understood. When Huang Tianyu got closer, he relaxed a little. The third head immediately understood that this was an opportunity. However, he would never have thought that Huang Tianyu did this on purpose. Huang Tianyu's original intention was not to let him go. Instead, he wanted to kill him. Die! The killing intent hidden in Huang Tianyu's eyes suddenly burst out. What? The third head was stunned. He finally realized that he had been tricked. However, by the time he reacted, his head had already flown into the air. Kill. Third brother. The second head's eyes turned red. Then, his gaze fell on Huang Tianyu as he roared. Bastard, you're both half-demons. How dare you try to kill him? Half-demon. This word came out of his mouth. Most importantly, the second head actually said that Huang Tianyu was a half-demon. Of those present, only Yi Xian was a human. The rest were all half-demons. Half-demon. When he heard this word, Yi Xian could not help but raise his eyebrows. This person had indeed revealed the secret. However, it was not surprising. If he did not reveal it now, he might not have another chance. Yi Xian, they are demons. They are mortal enemies with us humans. Kill them. Huang Tianyu ignored the second head's words and shouted directly. Okay. Yi Xian nodded. However, he was already certain that Huang Tianyu and Peng Bo were half demons. Because if it was only Huang Tianyu or Peng Bo, why would the second boss use you? However, even though Yi Xian said yes, his figure dashed towards the third master's corpse. Why? Of course it was to take something. Huang Tianyu was stunned for a moment. He thought that Yi Xian had discovered something and was coming for him. He deliberately took a detour, only to find that Yi Xian didn't attack him. Instead, he dashed to the third master's corpse and picked up the universe ring. Ding! Host's Earth attribute conversion has increased to 65 points. One universe ring allowed Yi Xian to increase his level by 2 levels. Awesome! Why did this brat's aura suddenly skyrocket? Even though Yi Xian could suppress it, Huang Tianyu could still feel Yi Xian's aura growing stronger. However, he did not think too much about it. He would deal with the second master first. The second master had already revealed the secret. However, seeing that Yi Xian did not take it seriously, he guessed that Yi Xian was in cahoots with Huang Tianyu and Peng Bo. Hence, he did not waste any more time and fought with all his might. However, he was no match for Huang Tianyu and Peng Bo, who had ethereal divine weapons. He was quickly killed. However, when he was about to die, someone suddenly dashed over and took the universe ring. Huang Tianyu found that it was Yi Xian again, so he did not pay much attention to it. They did not have the devouring system, so they could not retrieve anything from the universe ring. Hence, it did not matter who had the universe ring. They could just distribute it later. However, how could they have known that Yi Xian could empty the universe ring in an instant? Ding! Host's Earth attribute conversion has increased to 66 points. Yi Xian's level increased again. At this moment, Peng Bo turned around and asked, "Leader, should we chase after them?" Not only that, but the other exchanger, Zhou Huairen, had also finished off most of the bandits and dashed over. Nope. Huang Tianyu shook his head. Once the attribute conversion reached 100%, there would be a qualitative leap. It was much more powerful than 99%. If the great leader, who was at the peak of the spirit stage, transformed, they would not be able to defeat him even if they worked together. The 4 of them had successfully eliminated the bandits without any casualties. It was a complete victory. However, this was not the end. Leader, that person said that you're a half-beast. What is a half-beast? Yi Xian pretended not to know anything and asked. Half-beast? I've heard of it before. It's the Beast Clan. It's the mortal enemy of humans. Zhou Huairen blurted out. At this moment, Huang Tianyu and Peng Bo's expressions changed. This Zhou Huairen. Is he not a half-beast? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. He could not understand why Huang Tianyu did not convert Zhou Huairen as well since they were in the same team. That's right. Half-beasts and humans are mortal enemies. These half-beasts were originally humans, but they were later converted into beast clans. That person said, "I'm a half-beast." You must have heard wrongly. Peng Bo hurriedly said. Yi Xian pretended to have a change in expression and said, "Impossible. I heard it clearly. How could I have heard wrongly?" As he spoke, he began to back away. When Zhou Huairen saw this, he also did the same. Half-beasts belonged to the Beast Clan. The Beast Clan and humans were mortal enemies. If Huang Tianyu and Peng Bo were both half-beasts, then they might make a move. Yi Xian had to keep a distance from them. Peng Bo's heart trembled as he turned to look at Huang Tianyu. All right, then I won't hide it. That's right. Peng Bo and I are both half-beasts. Huang Tianyu saw that there was no way to smooth things over, so he could only say it out loud. Hearing this, Yi Xian and Zhou Huairen's expressions sank. Leader, you! Zhou Huairen couldn't believe it. He had joined Huang Tianyu's team for 2 years. He didn't expect that Huang Tianyu had spent 2 years with a half-beast. This almost scared him to death. The 2 of you saw it too. The 2 people who died were both half-beasts. They suddenly became stronger because they used half-beast transformation. Now, I'll give you a chance. As long as you join, you can become stronger like them. Huang Tianyu suddenly took out 2 half-beast hearts. But Beast Clan and humans are mortal enemies. Zhou Huairen frowned. That's right. But you have to know that this is a world where the strong are respected. As long as you can become stronger, what's the difference between Beast Clan and humans? Besides, I became a half-beast for a long time. If I didn't say it, even the elders wouldn't know. What's there to be afraid of? Huang Tianyu narrowed his eyes and raised his hand. Now, there are only two paths in front of you. One is to swallow this half-beast heart and increase your strength. Two is to die. This. Zhou Huairen looked hesitantly at Yi Xian. To tell the truth, he was already wavering. He knew that if he refused, he wouldn't be able to return alive. So this was the only path. This. All right. Zhou Huairen nodded silently. After glancing at Yi Xian, he walked towards Peng Bo. Chapter 590. Have a falling out, you? Yi Xian widened his eyes. The reason why he did not speak was because he wanted to see Zhou Huairen's choice. He never expected that Zhou Huairen would yield. If Zhou Huairen refused, the two of them could join forces to fight against Huang Tianyu and Peng Bo. It was not certain who would win. However, Zhou Huairen accepted. If that's the case, then I can only do this. Yi Xian had already made a decision in his heart. At this moment, Huang Tianyu spoke again. Yi Xian, your aptitude is very good. If you become a half-fiend, your physique will be greatly improved. At that time, who would be your opponent on land? This half-fiend's heart was refined from the blood essence of a peak spirit stage sky dragon's heart. If you swallow it, you might have the strength to fight against me. In fact, Yi Xian had already heard of this from the silver-armored man. If it was before, he might have used this move. However, this was only a sky dragon's heart. Even a peak spirit stage half-fiend's heart would not be able to increase his strength by much. No, I, Yi Xian, will not become a half-fiend. Yi Xian directly refused. Although he had the bloodline of a beast king, others would not be able to see it. He was not resisting the half-fiend's heart, but he did not want to become a fiend. If he became a fiend, then he would be hunted down by human experts if he was exposed in the future. At that time, his family might be implicated. Don't be in a hurry to refuse. Look at his changes first. Huang Tianyu waited until Zhou Huairen approached and threw a half-fiend's heart at him. Zhou Huairen caught the half-fiend's heart and paused for a moment. He held the sword in one hand and the half-fiend's heart in the other. He felt the strange spirit qi emitted by the half-fiend's heart. Suddenly, he glanced at Yi Xian and gave him a look. Yi Xian frowned. In the next moment, the sound of wind could be heard. Yi Xian, run! With a shout, Zhou Huairen suddenly attacked. He caught Peng Bo, who was nearby, off guard and sent him flying. What? This scene was beyond everyone's expectations. Zhou Huairen had actually changed his mind and launched a sneak attack on Peng Bo. No, it wasn't necessarily a change of heart. Perhaps Zhou Huairen had been feigning submission from the start. As expected, Yi Xian's eyes flashed and he used the demon god transformation again. However, Huang Tianyu moved as soon as the demon god's phantom entered his body. You piece of trash, die! Exasperated, Huang Tianyu slashed out with an extremely fast slash that swept past Zhou Huairen's body in an instant. Hiss! Zhou Huairen was cut into two halves. Fortunately, the cut was horizontal, so he was not dead yet. Huang Tianyu! Yi Xian roared. This time, he no longer held back and directly took out the Bahuang sword. 8 Barren Wind Killing Formation. Earth-splitting sword. Throbbing pulse of the world. Second layer. Because Huang Tianyu was flying in the air, the martial dragon movement technique was unable to fuse with the throbbing pulse of the earth to create the effect of the battle dragon's 10 steps. However, the 8 Barren Wind Killing Formation was beyond Huang Tianyu's expectations. This brat actually has another ethereal divine weapon. This means that Chen Liang was killed by him. At this moment, Huang Tianyu instantly understood. It turned out that Yi Xian had already known about the half-goblin. If that's the case, then you can die. Huang Tianyu did not underestimate Yi Xian and immediately used the demon transformation. In an instant, he became the same as Chen Liang and grew a heavenly dragon's tail. His attribute conversion had already reached 90%. Now that he had an ethereal divine weapon and used the demon transformation, his combat power had reached the peak of the spirit stage. So what if you use the demon transformation? Yi Xian did not care about anything else and attacked crazily. On land he was the king. Therefore, he would not foolishly fly into the sky and reduce his speed. After Huang Tianyu used the demon transformation, his attack speed was very fast. However, Yi Xian was even faster. The former's attack could only hit the latter's afterimage. After the two of them exchanged blows, it turned out that Yi Xian had the upper hand. This made Peng Bo and Zhou Huairen extremely shocked. This brat is actually so strong. Peng Bo suddenly crawled up from the ground and watched in shock. Fortunately, he had protected his vital parts. Otherwise, he would have been heavily injured by Zhou Huairen. However, Zhou Huairen had already been split in half by Huang Tianyu and had no combat power left. Demon transformation. Peng Bo also grew a pair of legs and a tail. He grabbed his ethereal divine weapon with his claws and rushed towards Yi Xian and Huang Tianyu. At the same time he shouted, "Captain, I'll help you." Although his strength was much weaker than Huang Tianyu, he still had an ethereal divine weapon. Coupled with the demon transformation, he would be able to help. Humph. I'll let you know that numbers don't necessarily mean strength. On land, Yi Xian's eyes flashed and he instantly changed his target. He controlled the 8 blades that contained the second layer of the Earth Pulse and rushed towards Peng Bo. Not only that, but the Sword of the Earth Splitter also changed its target from Huang Tianyu to Peng Bo. "Trash, get lost." Huang Tianyu's expression changed as he shouted angrily. It did not occur to him that Peng Bo was his teammate. He and Yi Xian were having a good time when Peng Bo suddenly came in. This would not only not help him, it would also make things worse. This was because he suddenly remembered that Yi Xian's strength had skyrocketed after he obtained the 2 interspatial rings. Huang Tianyu wanted to stop him, but Yi Xian was already in front of Peng Bo. After Peng Bo's demon transformation, his strength was not bad. However, in front of Yi Xian, he could not withstand a single blow. Die! Yi Xian's sword shook Peng Bo's defense and in the next instant, the 8 blades came at him. Boom! 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 All 8 blades were powered by Earth-type true energy, and all of them contained the pulse of the Earth. The blades pierced Peng Bo's body, petrifying him instantly. Then, the pulse of the Earth vibrated twice, shattering the petrification. Among them, one of the ice blades pierced Peng Bo's throat. This explosion caused him to bleed profusely. Die! Yi Xian chopped Peng Bo's head off with his sword. Then, he seized his interspatial ring and the Void God weapon. Ding! The host's Earth Essence conversion has increased to 68 points. 66 points. He had jumped to 68 points. This Peng Bo was still very rich. Of course, the Void God weapon accounted for a large portion of his wealth. Just now, Yi Xian had already suppressed Huang Tianyu. Now that he had broken through, how much longer could Huang Tianyu jump around? Not good. Huang Tianyu had been surprised before. After thinking about it, although he did not understand, he knew that as long as Yi Xian obtained the interspatial ring, Yi Xian's strength would increase. Now, his guess was confirmed. Chapter 591. Translator. Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo Studio kill Huang Tianyu. Huang Tianyu die. Yi Xian did not waste any more time as he charged forward. Huang Tianyu had joined the Warlord Palace for 5 years, which meant that he was part of the previous batch. After 2 years of testing, he was finally transformed into a half-demon. As a result, his physique improved, and he was rewarded with a Void God weapon and Void God martial arts. However, the Void God martial arts were too complicated for him. He had only mastered one after a few years, and he had only mastered 30% of it. Ever since he had mastered this move, he had never used it on anyone else. This time, he was going to use it. Solar Golden Flame Sword. Huang Tianyu roared in his heart. Metal attribute true energy began to surge out crazily, condensing into a huge golden sword on his azure light sword. Void God martial arts? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. However, Huang Tianyu's move reminded him of something. Huang Tianyu had refined the heart of a sky dragon to become a half-demon. Therefore, he might have the blood of a sky dragon flowing in his body. In that case, the dragon-slaying sword of desolation might have an effect on him. However, at this level very few people would engage in close combat. Most of the time it was a tug of war. Therefore, The dragon-slaying Sword of Desolation was not useful for the time being. However, even if Huang Tianyu used this void god martial arts, he would not be able to defeat Yi Xian. Go, 8 Desolation Sword! Yi Xian quickly controlled the 8 sharp blades to continuously attack the several-meter-long golden sword. The sound of the explosions was deafening. Boom! 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 Huang Tianyu's face darkened. He did not expect Yi Xian to have such an ability. The wind formation of desolation was giving him a headache. Die, brat! His face darkened as he slashed down. The power of his metal attribute True Energy increased after being strengthened by the golden sword. Even his speed was much faster. However, when he was halfway through his attack, the giant golden sword suddenly exploded. What? Huang Tianyu was stunned. His ultimate skill was actually dispersed by these 8 sharp blades. Was the earth pulse of 2 layers so terrifying? Huang Tianyu die. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yi Xian swiftly swept over. Under the double attack, Huang Tianyu was instantly beaten until he let out a roar of rage. Brat, you will definitely die. You will definitely die miserably. Huang Tianyu roared towards the sky. I, Yi Xian, will die, but I will definitely not be killed by you. Go. Yi Xian's eyes were cold as he prepared to deal the final blow to Huang Tianyu. Huang Tianyu was very unwilling. He did not think that he would die here, so he quickly took off the universe ring, wanting to destroy it. Once an interspatial ring was destroyed, no one knew where the items inside would go. He had been in the Battle King Hall for 5 years and had become a member of the Demon Clan. His superiors had given him many good things. How could Yi Xian allow him to destroy the universe ring? Swish! A slash quickly swept past Huang Tianyu's arm. Bang! 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 In the next moment, all 8 blades pierced into Huang Tianyu's body. 2 of them even blew up half of his head. Huang Tianyu dead. Ding! Host's Earth attribute conversion has increased to 70 points. 70 points was 70%. Now, Yi Xian was only 30% away from the empty god realm. Now the 4 half-demons were all dead, but Yi Xian was not idle. He quickly turned around and rushed towards Zhou Huairan. Zhou Huairan would rather die than become a half-demon. He wanted to buy some time for Yi Xian, but he was cut in half by Huang Tianyu. Big brother Zhou. Yi Xian quickly rushed over and took out a bottle of healing medicine, preparing to connect Zhou Huairan's body. Yi Xian, go back and report this. Unexpectedly, Zhou Huairan, who had long been unable to hold on, steeled himself and continued to watch the battle. Now, after seeing Yi Xian successfully kill Huang Tianyu and Peng Bo, he finally said his last words. Big brother Zhou. Yi Xian's eyes widened as he checked Zhou Huairan's aura. It was gone. Sigh. Yi Xian sighed helplessly. The world was truly unpredictable. He originally thought that Zhou Huairan had also been transformed by Huang Tianyu, but he didn't expect it to be so. As a result, when he was asking about the half-demon, Zhou Huairan suddenly spoke up. At that time, Yi Xian realized that Zhou Huairan had not been converted into a half-demon, but was a human like him. Speaking of which, Zhou Huairan's death had something to do with him. However, the dead could not be revived, so Yi Xian only felt a little pity. Then, he personally buried Zhou Huairan's body and kept Huang Tianyu's and the other 3 half-demons' corpses. That first master has already disappeared without a trace. I can't even chase after him. Now that I'm alone, should I go back or? After burying Zhou Huairan, Yi Xian thought to himself. He now understood that there were many half-demons in the Warlord Hall. These half-demons knew some techniques to conceal their aura, so even the elders could not detect them. Therefore, the Warlord Hall was like a tiger's den to him. In the previous assessment, Chen Liang had died. Now that Huang Tianyu had brought him out to carry out a mission, Huang Tianyu had also died. Both of them were half-demons. If the demons hiding in the Warlord Hall knew about this, they would definitely be suspicious. If he went back, he would definitely be walking right into a trap. However, he wanted to go back and take a look. Of course, it would be fine as long as he did not enter the Warlord Hall. He would disguise himself and secretly investigate. With my current strength, I'm afraid that I can already fight against those at the peak of the spirit stage. Even if it's a demon at the peak of the spirit stage, I should have the ability to protect myself. After thinking about it, Yi Xian moved. Before leaving, he also investigated the surroundings, but did not find any survivors. Since that was the case, this matter should not be leaked. As for the first master, he was a half-demon himself. He would not leak this matter, right? After Yi Xian left the bandits' den, he rushed towards the Warlord Hall. However, just as he was about to reach the Warlord Hall, a large group of people suddenly rushed towards him. What's the situation? Yi Xian's eyesight was amazing. Furthermore, there were many people in this group, so it was difficult for him not to notice them. Hundreds of people. There are at least a dozen groups. Are they going to carry out a mission? Furthermore, there's a leader in black armor? Yi Xian was very surprised. The leader was at the peak of the spirit stage. His attribute conversion had reached 100. He was only one step away from breaking through to the Nihility God stage. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly saw a familiar figure in the crowd. Shi Shao. Previously, Shi Shao also went out to do a mission. It was to eliminate the Saint Beasts, so it should be very fast. After he returned to the Warlord Hall, he quickly went out for a second mission? Yi Xian guessed in his heart. At this moment, the group had already approached him. Chapter 592. Conspiracy. My captain is Huang Tianyu. We went to eliminate the bandits, but we were forced to split up because the bandits were too powerful. I couldn't find the captain, so I came back first. Yi Xian replied. Oh, Huang Tianyu? The black-armored captain nodded. The stone puppet suddenly flew to the front and said, Captain, he's Yi Xian. You're Yi Xian? The black-armored captain narrowed his eyes and nodded. If that's the case, then there's no need for you to return to the Warlord Palace. Follow me. In the Warlord Palace, the palace guards had to listen to the orders of the gold-armored captains. As for the black-armored captains, they were naturally able to command the captains. Therefore, Yi Xian had no choice but to obey this order. It's a bit strange. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and blended in with the group. Yi Xian, how was the mission this time? The stone puppet came over and asked with a smile. Not good. 2 peak spirit stage warriors appeared. In order to protect me, the captain and the 2 brothers lured them over. Yi Xian shook his head. Oh, don't worry. We're all elites in the Warlord Palace. They'll be fine. The stone puppet said. Yi Xian nodded silently and asked, Do you know where we're going this time? I'm not sure. The captains should be taking us to carry out a mission. Otherwise, why would they mobilize so many people? The stone puppet shook his head. I heard that an important figure came to the main palace to discuss important matters. The elders were afraid that we would offend this important figure, so the captains let us out to carry out the mission. Someone in the crowd suddenly said. However, before he could finish his sentence, the leader of the black-armored soldiers shouted, Shut up! This time the person did not dare to speak. However, the words had already left his mouth, and Yi Xian had already heard it. Important figure? These captains? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. It seemed that they had mobilized many palace guards this time. No, rather than saying that they were mobilized, it would be better to say that they were hiding. Could it be that the Devil Clan experts were afraid that this important figure would discover them, so they sent everyone out to carry out the mission? Yi Xian suddenly guessed. If that was the case, then there might be quite a few half-demons in this group. By the way, Shi Shao, do you know which team Big Brother Chen, who led us through the assessment, belongs to? Yi Xian suddenly asked in a low voice. I know, he's from my team. I replaced him. Shi Shao nodded. What? Upon hearing this, Yi Xian was shocked. Had the stone puppet replaced Chen Liang and joined his team? After all, Chen Liang's captain was also a half-demon. Then, had the stone puppet also been transformed into a half-monster? Previously, Chen Liang took out 3 half-demon hearts. Perhaps he was preparing to transform me, Murong Shui and the stone puppet. It seems that the stone puppet has already been transformed. Yi Xian finally understood why the new palace guards had to be brought along by the old palace guards. Although Murong Shui was not in the team, she might have been converted. Otherwise she would have died. If that was the case, then everything made sense. Since the important figure from the main palace had arrived at the sub-palace, the Devil Clan experts in the sub-palace were afraid that they would be exposed. Therefore, they sent all the half-demons out to carry out the mission. Yi Xian observed for a moment and found that other than the captain, who was at the peak of the spirit stage, there were 10 other captains. They were powerful and were far from what he could fight against right now. Most importantly, he was unable to distinguish who was a human and who was a half-demon. Therefore, he could only hide for the time being. He mingled in this large group, and then was chased by the black-armored captain for a total of 4 days. Finally, they landed on an ordinary mountain. Where is this? Could it be a sacred beast's nest? Of course, why else would the captain bring us here? It could also be a rest. After all, we have been flying for 4 days. A group of people began to discuss. At this moment, the black-armored captain suddenly shouted, "Silence!" No one dared to speak again and listened quietly. "Everyone, stay on this mountain. Without my order, no one is allowed to leave. Those who disobey will be killed on the spot." The black-armored captain yelled. Hearing this, the expressions of the humans who did not understand changed. What made the black-armored captain become so cruel? Kill on the spot? Others might not understand, but Yi Xian knew that the black-armored captain's last sentence was probably meant for the other half-demons. If anyone dared to leave, the half-demons would immediately attack and kill them. "You 5 captains, follow me." The black-armored captain yelled and pointed at a few people. Immediately after, 5 captains wearing golden armor followed him. Not good. Yi Xian's face sank. He understood what the black-armored captain wanted to do. The black-armored captain was probably going to be converted. As for the other 10 captains, there were probably a few half-demons as well. At that time, under the pressure of these experts, the human captains would probably submit and become one of them. If all the human captains were to become half-demons, then it would be Yi Xian and the others' turn. What a big appetite. He's going to convert all of them in one go. Is he going to go all out? Yi Xian's eyes widened. He glanced at the stone puppet and found that the stone puppet's expression was very calm, as if he already knew what the black-armored captain was going to do. It seemed that the stone puppet had already surrendered and become a half-demon. Damn it, I don't know how to distinguish between humans and half-demons. If I continue to sit here, I'm afraid it will be dangerous. Yi Xian's face sank, but he forced himself to remain calm. Even if the 10 captains were all humans and only the black-armored captain was a half-demon, the captain could still bring them out alone. If anyone refused, he would instantly kill them without a trace. Moreover, half-demons seem to be able to sense their own kind. The human captains would not choose a third option. It seems that we have to go. Yi Xian already had a plan in mind, but he felt that it was not the right time. He should wait for the black-armored captain to come back first. At this time, the black-armored captain had already left with the 5 captains. The 100 or so palace guards of Warlord Hall remained here, waiting for them. In less than half an hour, the black-armored captain returned. However, one of the captains was missing. Only 4